if I use my power, I can even stop you from getting that job, and if you don't like it, just apologize to me." I couldn't help but laugh at his words. "Fine, go ahead and try," I said. "My name is Mary, and I'm a new mom struggling to adjust, but the person who should be struggling with me, my husband, isn't around to help." To be honest, I didn't fully see who my husband really was until I got pregnant. He's older than me by 6 years and was already a senior employee when we met. At work, he came across as smart, hardworking, calm, and kind. When he became my supervisor, we got to know each other better, which eventually led to marriage. I was still early in my career, but I was so in love with him and thrilled to marry someone I admired. In our company, it wasn't unusual for colleagues to marry. However, company rules didn't allow us to work in the same department after getting married. After a lot of discussion, it was decided that I'd transfer to another department. I had a patent attorney license, something I worked really hard to get in college. Thanks to that, I was able to move to the legal department at the head office. As a new hire, I spent my first year rotating between departments to learn how the company worked. That's how I ended up in the sales department, where my husband worked, but after our marriage, I was moved to legal earlier than planned. 5 years later, I wasn't feeling well and decided to visit the doctor. That's when I found out I was 4 months pregnant. We had been letting nature take its course, so this news made us happy, but as my pregnancy progressed into the second trimester, my morning sickness came back, and I had to take 3 months off work. That's when my husband's true nature came out. "Are you just lying in bed?" he'd ask. "I'm too anemic to stand up," I'd reply. "Then what about dinner? You're asking me to do that now?" When I was working, we shared all the housework equally, but as soon as I had to take leave, he left everything to me, even though I could barely function. "You're home all day, and you don't do a single chore. Can you please stop? You're making me feel worse." "That's not about anemia, that's a mental issue. You're just using your pregnancy as an excuse to be lazy." My husband would sit in the living room, watching TV at full volume, completely ignoring me while I lay in bed. Worse, he would leave the door to my room wide open, letting the noise from the TV flood in on purpose. "Please close the door," I'd ask, loud enough for him to hear, but he never listened. This was when I saw another side of my husband. He would sit in front of the TV, constantly criticizing the people on the screen. "Why is she even on TV? She's so ugly. Wow, look at how fat she is. That guy's got some nerve." He never stopped complaining, and it seemed like that was his way of enjoying TV. Fine, he could say whatever he wanted, but why did he have to keep the door open so I could hear it too? "Close the door, please," I repeated. But he ignored me. Just as before, the TV blared, and his constant grumbling filled the house. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, shut the door myself, and went back to bed, but before I could even get comfortable, he opened the door again. "Why did you open it?" I snapped. He didn't answer, just kept watching TV as if I wasn't even there. I had reached my limit. I called my parents and explained everything. My mom immediately told me to come home so I could rest and recover. The moment I arrived at my parents' house, I felt like I could finally breathe. It was the perfect place to heal. They made sure I had 3 healthy meals every day, and the house was calm and peaceful. My parents and my 2 younger sisters took care of me like I was fragile. Every day, my sisters would rush home from school to check on me. "How are you feeling?" they'd ask, their concern so genuine it made me tear up. Slowly, my health improved. I even started joining the family for meals in the dining room. "Lunch is ready," my mom said one day. "Thank you," I replied. "Do you mind if I turn on the TV?" "Go ahead," I said with a small smile. We sat together, watching a light-hearted show. My mom chuckled at the comedian on the screen. "This guy is hilarious. Once the baby's born and you're feeling better, we should visit this shopping arcade." Her laughter was so warm and natural that I started crying without realizing it. My mom noticed and looked at me, startled. "Why are you crying?" When I sniffled, my mom grew concerned. "What's wrong? Are you sick?" "No, I'm fine," I said, trying to hold back tears. "Tell me what's wrong," she urged gently. "I don't like living with Nico," I admitted. "Oh," she said, "why?" I opened up and told her everything. She listened quietly, without interrupting. "He keeps opening the door to my room on purpose, even when it's so loud, and when I close it, he just opens it again. He's always complaining about the TV. I want to laugh with him, The way I laugh with you. My mom frowned. That's not good, especially with a baby on the way. I can't stand the thought of him acting like this in front of our child, I said. You need to talk to him, my mom suggested. I don't want to see him anymore, I blurted out. Mary, you're going to be a mother. You can't just walk away without trying. You have a child to think about, she reminded me. You're right, I sighed. For the sake of my baby, I decided to have a serious talk with Nico. After recovering, I took only 2 months off work and then returned to my job. I also went back to the house I shared with Nico. When I got there, the house was surprisingly clean. It seemed like he had been managing fine on his own, except for one thing, the smell. Is this my pregnancy making me sensitive to smells? I wondered. But when I opened the door to my room, I saw the source of the odor. My room was a disaster zone. Garbage and dirty dishes were scattered everywhere. It was like a dump. Did he eat in here? I thought in disbelief. Just then, Nico came home. What, you're back? He said, looking annoyed. What's all this? I asked, pointing to the mess in my room. What's what? He replied carelessly. My room, why is it like this? Oh, that? It's your punishment for neglecting your chores, not taking care of me, and running off to your parents' house. I stared at him in shock. And by the way, he continued, you've gained weight, don't get any fatter, or I'll divorce you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You weren't like this before I got pregnant. Why are you acting this way now? I've always been like this, he said smugly, you just didn't notice. If you keep neglecting me, faking sickness, or running back to your parents, I'll punish you again, he added. And what about our child? I asked, desperate to find some reason in him. Huh? The baby, shouldn't we put our child first? He laughed mockingly, you're so stupid. Of course, I come first, the baby comes second. Now, go make dinner. That was the last straw. I'm moving back to my parents' house, I said firmly. Go ahead, he sneered, but you'll just get punished again. It was clear we couldn't have a real conversation. That was when I made my decision. I was done. I was going to divorce him. I went back to my parents' house and told them everything. I never expected things to get this bad, I said. What can I say? He's a twisted jerk, my dad muttered. No, he's a twisted scumbag, my younger sister chimed in. My family's support made me smile for the first time in a while. With their warmth and care, my baby and I were fine. Time passed, and I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Though I was told I could take a year of parental leave, with my mom's help, I returned to work after just 6 months. I worked hard for my son, determined to provide him with a good life. One day, on my day off, I decided to go back to Nico's house to finalize our divorce. When he saw me, he smirked and waved the divorce papers in front of me. I'm divorcing a fat wife like you. Here's the paperwork, he said, grinning wickedly. Perfect, I said, reaching for the papers. You're faster than I thought. Let's get it done. But before I could take them, he crumpled them up. What are you doing? I asked, annoyed. Wait, listen to me first, he said, looking desperate. What? Look at me. No, you just said you wanted to divorce me. Now let's do it. You won't be able to live without me, he declared. Actually, I've done just fine without you these past 6 months. Life has been peaceful. I'm a salesman, he shouted. So? I bring work to the company. Without me, none of you would even have jobs. Are you serious right now? I asked, rolling my eyes. A company is only as good as its salespeople. You should respect me. Okay, I said, pulling out the divorce papers from my bag. Just sign these. He grabbed for the papers, trying to tear them up. What do you think will happen if you tear them up? I asked calmly, stopping him in his tracks. Then I pulled out a voice recorder and my phone from my bag. I've recorded everything you just said, I told him. He snatched the recorder from my hand, but I didn't flinch. My phone is connected to a colleague, I lied smoothly. Even if you destroy the voice recorder, they've already heard everything, and if you don't sign, I'll help them file a complaint against you in the sales department. I stared at him. So what's it going to be? Sign the papers, or make it worse for yourself? Defeated, he nodded and filled out the divorce papers. I don't want any alimony or child support, just stay away from us, I told him firmly. Fine, he muttered. I grabbed the signed papers and left without looking back. Thanks, Mom, I said into my phone. It's okay, Just head to the city office and get it filed, she replied. I had been on the phone with her the whole time, letting her listen in case anything went wrong. Thankfully, Nico never figured out I was bluffing. Though I could have gotten help from my colleagues, I didn't want to involve him. As much as I hated Nico, he was someone I had once loved. I couldn't destroy his career, even after everything he'd done. But in the end, his actions made me realize my mercy had been wasted. After the divorce was finalized, rumors about me spread like wildfire. My ex-husband didn't waste a second, calling me a terrible wife, accusing me of harassment, and painting himself as the victim. He used every possible opportunity to tarnish my name, but I stayed silent. They say mothers are strong women, I reminded myself. For my child's sake, I refused to let his words bring me down. The only mistake I ever made was being blind to the kind of man he was. Unfortunately, sympathy for him grew in the sales department. One day, I was washing my cup in the office break room when I heard his voice behind me. Hey, he said. I turned around, surprised. What do you want? I came to see you, he said, grinning smugly. Why? I asked bluntly. You're in trouble right now, he said, leaning against the counter. What trouble? Everyone at the company thinks you're the bad one, he said, trying to sound intimidating. I shrugged. Okay. His smirk faltered. He had expected me to be upset. I've got work to do. Bye, I said, turning to leave. But he stepped in front of me, blocking my path. That's what happens when you piss me off, he sneered. So, what exactly do you mean by that? I asked, unfazed. His confidence wavered at my calm response. You're getting a bad reputation in the company, he snapped, trying again. And? Isn't that a problem for you? Not at all, I replied, smiling. His frustration grew. If I wanted to, I could use my influence to ruin your career. If you don't like it, just apologize to me. I couldn't help but laugh. Go ahead, I said. Do you even know what my job is? Only people in the development department could make my job harder. And guess what? I'm a patent attorney. You're a sales manager. Our roles don't overlap at all. You have no power here. Oh, so you think you can get a patent just by talking to me? My ex-husband sneered. You'll never get it. If you're going to apply for a patent, don't bother doing it with me. Then, he suddenly grabbed my cup and swung it in the air, as if to hit me. I shut my eyes quickly, bracing for impact. Enough, I heard a new voice shout. I opened my eyes to see the general sales manager and the general manager grabbing my ex-husband by the arms. I thought this was just a lover's quarrel, but I was wrong, the general manager said, looking surprised. My ex-husband stood frozen, staring at the managers. The general manager turned to me. Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied, still in shock. Stop yelling. We could hear you all the way from the conference room, the general manager scolded my ex-husband. The managers escorted him out, and that was the last time I saw him at the company. He resigned voluntarily after that. It turned out, the conference room where the managers were holding their regular meeting was right next to the hot water supply room. The managers, including the general manager of sales and the deputy general manager from the legal department, could hear everything. My ex-husband, angry at my calm response, shouted insults, and everyone in the meeting overheard him. His lies about me being a moral harasser and a bad wife were exposed. The tables had turned. He went from making me the villain to being seen as the power-hungry, abusive husband. He couldn't handle it. In the end, the mercy I had shown him was destroyed by his own actions. As for what happened to him after that, I don't know. I'm just glad he's out of my life. The truth always comes out. Now, with my ex-husband gone, my stress is gone too. I'm focusing on working harder and becoming a mother my son can be proud of. As for my ex-husband, looking back, I think everything he did was pointless. But I'm just glad Mary is doing better.
I never thought I'd find myself digging through my parents' office at midnight, but desperation makes you do crazy things. The dim light from my phone barely illuminated the stacks of papers as I searched for my college acceptance letter. Mom had misplaced it earlier that day, right after I'd mentioned needing their financial information for my student aid application. My name is Cal, and until tonight I'd been the perfect daughter, quiet, obedient, and painfully invisible next to my golden boy brother Jasper. The drawer creaked as I pulled it open, making me freeze. Down the hall, my parents' steady snoring continued. I let out a breath and kept searching. That's when I saw it, a thick envelope with my grandparents' return address postmarked 3 months ago. Strange. I hadn't received anything from them recently. My hand shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and what looked like legal documents. The first line made my stomach drop. "Dearest Callahan, we want you to know about the education fund we've set up for you." Education fund? What education fund? I kept reading, my vision blurring as I took in the details. $20,000 specifically earmarked for my college education. The letter was dated well before my college acceptance, back when I was still trying to convince my parents that university was worth considering. "We know your dreams are bigger than the small-town life your parents envision," my grandmother wrote. "This money is yours to use, no strings attached." The documents showed everything, account numbers, transfer details, signatures. But I'd never seen a penny of it. My parents had received this months ago and never said a word. A floorboard creaked behind me. "What are you doing in here?" I spun around to find my mother in her silk robe, arms crossed. The letter crinkled in my tight grip. "When were you going to tell me about this?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. She glanced at the paper and something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe? Disappeared so fast I might have imagined it. "That money is being put to better use," she said, reaching for the letter. "Your brother's new business venture. You gave my college fund to Jasper?" The words felt like glass in my throat. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "This is what's best for the family. Jasper has real potential. And I don't." "Don't be dramatic, Callahan. You can take classes at the community college like we discussed. Jasper needs this investment for his future. For his engagement to Serena. You understand that, don't you?" I looked at my mother, really looked at her. Her perfectly styled hair, even at midnight. The way she held herself like she was always being photographed for the local society pages. Everything had to be perfect in her world, and somehow I'd never quite fit into that picture. "No," I said quietly. "I don't understand at all." I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket before she could grab it. "I'm calling Grandma and Grandpa in the morning." "You will do no such thing." Her voice had that sharp edge I knew too well. "This is a family matter, and it's been decided." "You're right about one thing," I said, moving past her toward the door. "It is a family matter. And Grandma and Grandpa are family too. Callahan Reed, if you walk out that door..." I didn't hear the rest. I was already halfway down the hall, my heart pounding with a strange mix of anger and something else, freedom maybe. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother clearly, and with that clarity came a decision. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. Grandma Maeve's guest room felt more like home after just 3 days than my old bedroom ever did. The morning sun streamed through lace curtains as I unpacked the last of my clothes, trying not to think about the dozen missed calls from my mother. The sound of china clinking downstairs drew me to the kitchen, where Grandma was setting out her good tea service. She looked up with that knowing smile of hers. "Your mother's coming over," she said, placing a third cup on the tray. "Thought we might need the fancy cups for this one." My stomach clenched. "How did she..." "Small town, sweetheart. The Martha from the grocery store saw you helping your grandfather with the groceries yesterday." She paused, adjusting a napkin. "Your mother wasn't pleased to hear it from her instead of us." "Of course. Heaven forbid the town gossips catch wind of any Reed family drama before my mother could control the narrative." Right on cue, the doorbell chimed. Grandma squeezed my hand before going to answer it. I heard them in the foyer, my mother's practiced laugh, the click of her heels on hardwood. When they entered the kitchen, Mom was wearing her charity board smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "Callahan," she said, as if we were meeting at a garden party. "This little tantrum has gone on long enough, don't you think?" "Lila," Grandma's voice carried a warning. "That's not why we're here." "You're right, Mother." Mom sat primly at the kitchen table. We're here because my daughter is being unreasonable about family obligations. Unreasonable? I couldn't help but laugh. You stole my college fund and gave it to Jasper. How is that reasonable? We redistributed family resources where they would do the most good. She stirred her tea with precise movements. Your brother's business venture will benefit everyone. The connections he's making through Serena's family alone. I don't care about connections. Teacup rattled as I set it down too hard. I care about my future. The one you decided wasn't worth investing in. The community college has perfectly adequate programs. That's enough. Grandma's voice cut through the tension. She turned to my mother. Lila, do you remember when you were 18? When you wanted to study art in Paris? Mom's hand froze mid-stir. That was different. Was it? 'Cause I remember a young woman with dreams bigger than this town, who cried for days when her father said no. Grandma leaned forward. You swore you'd never do that to your own children. I grew up, Mom snapped. I learned what really matters. Kata's security. Living someone else's life? I asked quietly. The look she gave me could have frozen hell. You have no idea what sacrifice means, what it takes to maintain a family's position in society. Your father and I have worked too hard to let you throw away everything on some foolish dream of independence. The only thing foolish here, Grandma said, is thinking you can control your children's lives forever. Mom stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I see you've both made up your minds. But remember this, Callahan, actions have consequences. If you insist on this path, don't expect any support from your father and me. You mean like the support you've already shown by stealing my college fund? She flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, regret maybe, or fear. Then it was gone, replaced by that perfect mask again. I'll see myself out, she said, turning toward the door. She paused, not looking back. Your brother's engagement dinner is Saturday. The whole town will be there. It would look better if you attended. After she left, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Grandma wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Well, she said, that went about as well as expected. I don't understand her, I whispered. How can she just? Your mother lost herself a long time ago, trying to be what everyone else wanted. Grandma picked up the untouched teacups. The question is, are you ready to fight for who you want to be? I thought about the engagement dinner, about facing the whole town while playing happy families, about Jasper, who probably had no idea what our parents had done. Yes, I said. I think I am. Country club ballrooms sparkled with champagne flutes and fake smiles. I adjusted my thrift store dress, feeling like an imposter among the designer labels and pearl necklaces. Jasper's engagement dinner was exactly the kind of event my mother lived for, all surface shine and strategic social positioning. Cal! Jasper's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. He weaved through the crowd, Serena by his side. You came. Wouldn't miss it, I lied, accepting his hug. Close, I noticed the shadows under his eyes, poorly concealed. Serena squeezed my hand. I'm so glad you're here. Jasper's been worried sick since you left home. Before I could respond, Mom materialized beside us, perfect smile firmly in place. Darling, the Walshes want to discuss the wedding venue. And Callahan, her voice cooled several degrees. Your father needs a word. Dad waited by the bar, nursing what I knew wouldn't be his first scotch of the evening. His shoulders were tight under his expensive suit. The prodigal daughter returns, he said, not looking at me. Dad, your mother tells me you're being difficult about the wedding arrangements. I blinked. What arrangements? Don't play dumb, Callahan. The loan paperwork needs your signature. The Walshes are contributing significantly, but we need to match their investment to maintain appearances. What loan paperwork? He finally turned to me, irritation clear in his expression. The papers we discussed last week about using your trust fund as collateral. Your mother said she explained everything. The room tilted slightly. My trust fund? The one Grandma and Grandpa set up for my education? The one you and Mom already gave to Jasper? Dad's face reddened. Keep your voice down. This isn't the place. When is the place? My voice shook. When you've forged my signature. When you've stolen even more of my future. Everything we do is for this family's future, he hissed. Your brother's marriage to Serena will secure our position. Your position, I corrected. Not mine. Never mine. A sharp laugh escaped me, drawing curious glances from nearby guests. You know what's funny? I came tonight hoping there was still something worth saving. But you're still trying to take what little I have left. You're being melodramatic. Is everything all right? Jasper appeared beside us, frowning. Perfect timing, I said, turning to my brother. Did you know about my trust fund? The one funding your new business? Jasper's confusion seemed genuine. What trust fund? The education fund from Grandma and Grandpa. Mom and Dad redirected it to your business venture months ago. And now they want me to take out a loan for your wedding. Color drained from Jasper's face. He turned to our father. Dad, this isn't the time or place. When is? I demanded again, louder this time. Heads turned. Mom appeared, panic flickering behind her perfect mask. Callahan, you're making a scene. No, Mother. I'm finally speaking up. I faced the growing crowd of onlookers. You want to talk about family obligations? Let's talk about how you stole my college fund. How you're trying to force me into debt for a wedding I can't afford. How everything in this family revolves around keeping up appearances while you tear us apart from the inside. That's enough. Dad grabbed my arm. Jasper stepped between us. Let her go. The room fell silent. Mom's carefully constructed world cracked visibly as whispers started. I'm done, I said quietly, pulling free. Done being the family's sacrifice. Done watching you destroy everything real in the name of appearances. I turned to Jasper. I'm sorry. I love you, but I can't watch this anymore. As I walked out, I heard Serena's voice behind me. Jasper, did you know about this? And then my brother's response, soft but clear. No. But I'm going to find out. Sighed in the cool night air, my hands shook as I texted Grandma to pick me up. The facade had finally cracked, and through that crack I caught a glimpse of something I hadn't expected, not just anger or revenge, but the possibility of truth setting us all free, even if it had to break us first. The email from Sterling and Associates lit up my phone screen at 3 a.m. I'd been obsessively checking since submitting my internship application last week, but now that the moment had arrived, my finger hovered uncertainly over the notification. Grandpa Arthur found me on the back porch an hour later, still staring at my unopened email. Can't sleep? He settled into the chair beside me, offering a steaming mug of cocoa. They offered me the internship, I said quietly. His face broke into a proud smile. That's wonderful news. It's in New York. Ah. He understood immediately. New York meant leaving everything behind, the town, the drama, the constant weight of family expectations. It meant really choosing myself for the first time. My phone buzzed. Jasper's name flashed on the screen. You should answer it, Grandpa said, squeezing my shoulder as he stood. Some bridges are worth keeping, even if others need to burn. I waited until he was inside before accepting the call. Hey, stranger, Jasper's voice was soft, careful. Got a minute? Sure. I've been doing some digging since the engagement dinner. He paused. There's more, Cal. More than just your trust fund. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? Mom and Dad. They've been using Grandma and Grandpa's money for years. Country club memberships, their social circle, my private school tuition, it all came from the Sterling family trust. They've been living on credit and appearances. Cocoa turned bitter in my mouth. How did you find out? Serena's father is a financial advisor. He's been helping me understand the business venture Dad wants me to take over. His voice cracked slightly. It's all smoke and mirrors, Cal. They're drowning in debt, and they're trying to use my marriage to Serena to save themselves. Pieces clicked into place: Mom's obsession with status, Dad's drinking, their desperate need to control everything and everyone around them. Does Serena know? Yes. He sounded tired. She's been amazing, actually. Wants me to walk away from all of it, start fresh. Are you going to? A long pause. I don't know. But there's something else you should know. Mom's planning to contest Grandma and Grandpa's trust. She's claiming they're mentally unfit to manage their own finances. The world tilted sideways. She can't do that. She's already filed the paperwork. That's why I'm calling. You need to warn them. My free hand clenched into a fist. When? The hearing's next week. Cal, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what they were doing sooner. The unopened email seemed to pulse on my screen. New York suddenly felt like both an escape and an abandonment. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know, he repeated. But whatever happens, I want you to know I'm on your side this time. Really on your side. After we hung up, I finally opened the email. The internship offer was everything I dreamed of: prestigious firm, excellent pay, potential for permanent position after graduation. My ticket out. But Grandma and Grandpa's faces flashed in my mind. They'd taken me in, supported my dreams, given me back my sense of worth. And now my mother was trying to destroy them too. My fingers moved across the screen, typing out a response to Sterling and Associates. Thank you for the incredible opportunity. I need to request a delayed start date of 3 weeks. The sun was rising when Grandma found me still on the porch. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong. What is it, sweetheart? We need to talk, I said, standing up. All of us. And then we need to call a lawyer. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll put on some coffee. This sounds like a conversation that needs caffeine. As she turned to go inside, I caught her arm. Grandma, thank you. For everything. She smiled, but her eyes were sad. Family protects family, dear. The real kind of family, not the kind that just looks good in photographs. I looked down at my phone one last time, at the acceptance email in Jasper's text thread. Sometimes choosing yourself means choosing who to fight for. And sometimes revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free. Courthouse steps felt endless as I climbed them beside our lawyer, Sarah Chen. My mother's accusations of mental incompetence against my grandparents had spread through town like wildfire, exactly as she'd planned. Now everyone was choosing sides. Remember, Sarah said, adjusting her briefcase, let me do the talking. Your mother's lawyer will try to provoke an emotional response. Inside, Mom sat with her perfectly styled hair and designer suit, looking more like she was attending a charity luncheon than trying to destroy her own parents. Dad slouched beside her, already showing signs of a hangover. Grandma and Grandpa walked in with quiet dignity, holding hands. The sight of them made my throat tight. All rise, the bailiff called. The hearing started with Mom's lawyer painting a picture of elderly confusion and financial mismanagement. He presented bank statements showing large withdrawals, my college fund, conveniently omitting that my parents had redirected it to Jasper's business. Then came the character assassination. We have multiple witnesses, Mom's lawyer declared, who can testify to Callahan Reed's manipulation of her grandparents, taking advantage of their declining faculties for her own financial gain. My hands clenched under the table. Sarah touched my arm in warning. Furthermore, he continued, Mrs. Reed has evidence that her daughter has a history of emotional instability and poor decision-making. A manila envelope appeared. Inside were printouts of private text messages between Jasper and me discussing our parents' financial schemes. Messages I thought were secure. Mom's face remained perfectly composed, but I caught the slight upturn of her lips. She'd been monitoring our phones all along. The judge reviewed the documents while my stomach churned. Then he asked the question that changed everything. Where is Jasper Reed? These messages indicate he has relevant testimony. My son is unavailable, Your Honor, Mom said smoothly. He's focused on his upcoming wedding and new business venture. Courthouse doors opened. Actually, Jasper's voice rang out, I'm right here. He walked in with Serena beside him, both in professional attire. Mom's mask cracked for the first time as her golden child approached the bench. Your Honor, Jasper said, I have documentation proving that my parents have been systematically draining my grandparents' accounts for years, using the money to maintain their social status while accumulating massive debt. Mom's lawyer jumped up. Objection. This is irrelevant to the competency hearing. I'll allow it, the judge said, studying the new papers Jasper presented. I watched my mother's face as her carefully constructed world began to crumble. Her eyes darted between Jasper and me, calculating, searching for control. Jasper, she said, her voice honey-sweet. Sweetheart, you don't understand the complexity. I understand perfectly, he cut her off. I understand how you manipulated all of us. How you're trying to declare your own parents incompetent to cover up your financial fraud. How you monitored our phones and used our private conversations against us. The judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Reed, these allegations are serious. If verified, they could result in criminal charges. Mom stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. Everything I've done has been for this family. To maintain our position, our respect. No, I said, finally finding my voice. It was for your position, your respect, and you were willing to destroy everyone else to keep it. She turned to me, eyes blazing. You ungrateful little. That's enough, the judge interrupted. Based on the evidence presented, I'm dismissing the competency petition. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into the financial allegations. Mrs. Reed, Mr. Reed, I suggest you retain criminal defense counsel. As security approached my parents, Mom's perfect mask shattered completely. You'll regret this, she hissed at me. Both of you will regret choosing them over family. No, Mother, Jasper said quietly. We're choosing real family over appearances. There's a difference. Standing between my brother and my grandparents, I watched my parents being led to separate police cars. The victory felt hollow, tasting more like ashes than justice. You okay? Jasper asked. I looked at my phone, at the delayed internship acceptance, still waiting for a final answer. I will be. We all will be. Sometimes winning means losing everything you thought you needed, only to find what you really wanted was there all along. The bail hearing was set for Thursday, but Mom managed to get released early. Money talks, even when you're being investigated for financial fraud. I shouldn't have been surprised to find her waiting in Grandma's kitchen Tuesday morning, perfectly composed in her Chanel suit. We need to discuss the wedding, she said, as if the past week hadn't happened. Grandma stood protectively beside me. Lila, you shouldn't be here. It's my daughter's wedding, Mom replied smoothly. Of course I should be here. I'm not getting married, I said, confused. Her smile turned sharp. No, dear. Jasper's wedding. Though I suppose you wouldn't know the details since you've been so preoccupied with destroying our family. She pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the kitchen table. These are the loan documents you signed last year. The ones funding the wedding venue, the catering, everything. I never signed anything. Really? She spread out several papers, each bearing my signature. The bank seems to think otherwise. My blood ran cold as I examined the documents. The signatures looked real, perfect copies of my own handwriting. When did you... You left so many school permission slips lying around over the years, she said casually. It was simple enough to practice. Grandma reached for the phone. I'm calling Sarah. Go ahead, Mom said. But consider this, a fraud investigation will delay the wedding. Serena's family will withdraw their support. Jasper will lose everything he's worked for. Is that what you want, Callahan? To destroy your brother's happiness too? My hands shook as I looked at the loan amounts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, all in my name. You're bluffing, I said, but my voice wavered. Am I? She stood, straightening her jacket. The Walsh family values reputation above all. One hint of scandal and they'll pull Serena out faster than you can say family shame. Just ask your father, he's already drinking himself to sleep over what you've done to us. What I've done? The words caught in my throat. You're the one who what? Protected this family? Maintained our position? Everything I did was for you children, and this is how you repay me. Her voice cracked, showing real emotion for the first time. You have until tomorrow to withdraw the fraud allegations. Otherwise, I submit these documents to the bank. After she left, I sank into a kitchen chair, the weight of her threat crushing my chest. We'll fight this, Grandma said firmly. Sarah will know what to do. My phone buzzed, a text from Jasper. Just heard from Mom. Is it true about the loans? Another buzz. Serena's parents are asking questions. They're talking about postponing everything. A third, Cal, please. I can't lose this too. I stared at the loan documents, at my forged signature repeated over and over. Mom had planned this perfectly, my word against hers, with Jasper's happiness as collateral damage. Cal. Grandma touched my shoulder. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about Jasper, I said quietly. About how he stood up for me in court. About how he's finally happy with Serena. This isn't your responsibility, isn't it? I looked up at her, feeling the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. Mom's right about one thing, the Walshes will run at the first sign of scandal. Jasper will lose Serena, his future, everything. And what about your future? Grandma demanded. Your internship? Your dreams? I touched the loan papers, tracing my forged signature. Maybe some dreams cost too much. My phone buzzed again, the internship coordinator asking for my final decision. Cursor blinked at me, waiting for a response that would either save my brother's happiness or preserve my own future. Sometimes the hardest choices aren't between right and wrong, but between two different kinds of sacrifice. And sometimes revenge isn't worth the collateral damage it leaves behind. I picked up my phone and started typing, knowing that whatever I decided, something irreplaceable would be lost. The church bells were already ringing when I pulled into the parking lot. Guests in designer suits and summer dresses filed through the heavy wooden doors while I sat in my car, staring at the manila envelope on the passenger seat. Inside was every piece of evidence Sarah had gathered, years of forged signatures, fraudulent accounts, and financial manipulation. Everything needed to bring my mother down once and for all, and destroy Jasper's wedding in the process. I grabbed the envelope and headed for the church's side entrance. The bridal suite door was ajar, voices drifting out. Can't reach the bank until Monday, Mom was saying. Everything's arranged, Jasper. Just trust me. Like I trusted you about Cal's college fund? I froze outside the door. Your sister made her choices, Mom replied smoothly. But today is about you and Serena. Don't let Cal's drama ruin this too. Drama? Jasper's voice cracked. You forged her signature, Mom. Put her in debt for my wedding without even telling me. I did what was necessary. No. Serena's voice now, sharp and clear. You did what was easy. Using Cal to fix your mistakes was easy. Lying to everyone was easy. I pushed the door open. Mom stood in her mother-of-the-groom dress, perfect as always, while Jasper and Serena faced her in their wedding attire. Cal. Mom's smile didn't reach her eyes. I thought we had an understanding about today. We do. I held up the envelope. I'm here to make things right. By destroying your brother's wedding? How selfless of you. Actually, I turned to Jasper. I'm here to save it. I pulled out the bank documents, the real ones showing Mom's years of fraud. These prove everything. The forged signatures, the stolen money, all of it. Mom's mask cracked slightly. Callahan, think about what you're doing. I have. I handed the papers to Jasper. But there's something else you should see first. I produced a second document, my withdrawal from the fraud investigation, already signed and dated. What is this? Jasper asked. My surrender. I met Mom's startled gaze. You win, Mother. The investigation ends today. The loans stay in my name. Your reputation stays intact. Cal, no, Serena stepped forward. You can't. I can. And I will. I turned back to Mom. But here's what happens next. You're going to sign over your share of Grandma and Grandpa's trust to me. All of it. And you're going to leave them and me alone. Mom's laugh was brittle. Or what? Or these papers go to the police anyway. Maybe not today, maybe not this week, but someday. When you least expect it. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering when everything will fall apart. You wouldn't I? You taught me well, Mother. About leverage. About control. About using people's fears against them. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of manipulation and hurt. Finally, Mom reached for her designer purse, pulled out a pen. You've become quite calculating, Callahan. I learned from the best. She signed the trust transfer with her perfect signature, her real one this time. As she handed it back, something flickered in her eyes. Pride? Regret? I couldn't tell anymore. The ceremony starts in 10 minutes, she said quietly. I should check on the guests. After she left, Jasper grabbed my arm. Cal, you can't do this. Those loans are worth it, I finished. Your happiness is worth it, but your future is still mine to choose. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Besides, I already accepted the internship. Turns out New York firms pay pretty well. Serena hugged me. You're something else, Cal Reed. Speaking of which, I pulled away, straightening Jasper's bow tie. Don't you two have a wedding to get to? As the music started playing and Jasper took his place at the altar, I slipped into a back pew. Mom sat in the front row, perfect posture, perfect smile, perfectly alone. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about choosing which battles matter most and finding victory in letting go of the rest. 6 months after the wedding, New York felt more like home than our small town ever had. My apartment was tiny, but the view of the city lights made up for it. I was reviewing case files for tomorrow's meeting when my phone buzzed with Jasper's FaceTime call. Aunt Cal. Serena's voice came through first, followed by the image of her holding up a sonogram. Say hello to your future niece. Papers scattered as I sat up straight. A girl? When did you find out? This morning. Jasper appeared beside her, grinning. We wanted you to be the first to know. Have you told Mom and Dad? His smile faded slightly. No. And we're not going to, not yet. Dad's still in rehab and Mom, well, you know Mom. I did know. The last I'd heard, she was living in a smaller house across town, still attending charity functions but no longer running them. Queen had lost her crown, but she was hanging on to what remained of her kingdom. Grandma and Grandpa are coming for dinner, Serena said, changing the subject. They miss you. I miss them too. I glanced at my calendar, marked with upcoming court dates and client meetings. But this case is huge and nothing, Jasper cut in. Family dinner next weekend. No excuses. Family dinner. The words still made my stomach clench, even now. But when I looked at their faces, Jasper's quiet strength, Serena's warm smile, I realized the phrase had taken on a new meaning. "Okay," I said. "Next weekend." After we hung up, I found myself pulling out the letter that had arrived last week. Mom's perfect handwriting on expensive stationery, still unopened. The doorbell rang before I could change my mind about reading it. When I opened the door, Sarah Chin stood there, looking exactly as she had in the courthouse months ago. "Your mother's contesting the trust transfer," she said without preamble. "She can't. The paperwork was filed incorrectly. Deliberately, I suspect." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "She played us, Cal. She knew all along there was a loophole. I should have felt angry, betrayed, ready for another fight. Instead, I found myself laughing." "What's funny?" Sarah asked. "All of it." I picked up Mom's letter from the coffee table. She never cared about the money. She cared about control. About having one last card to play. "So, what do you want to do?" I broke the seal on the letter, finally reading my mother's words. "Dearest Callahan, you've become everything I feared, strong enough to break free, brave enough to choose your own path. Everything I never was. Trust is yours if you still want it. But I hope you've learned what I never could, that true worth isn't measured in bank accounts or social standing. You won, darling. Not because you beat me, but because you chose to walk away. Mom." I handed the letter to Sarah. "File a countermotion. Not to keep the trust, but to split it, half to Jasper's baby, half to a scholarship fund for local students." "Are you sure?" "After everything she did." "I'm sure." I looked out at the city lights, thinking of Jasper's daughter, of choices and consequences, of the difference between revenge and redemption. Some victories aren't about winning or losing. They're about choosing who you want to become. Later that night, I sent 2 texts. To Jasper, "Your daughter's trust fund is taken care of. Tell her Aunt Cal says welcome to the family." And after a long pause, to Mom, "Thank you for the letter. Coffee next weekend?" Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with lawyers or evidence, but with the choice to break cycles instead of people. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well on your own terms with the family you choose along the way.
The phone's shrill ring pierced the darkness at 3:17 a.m. As a trauma surgeon, late-night calls weren't unusual, but this one made my stomach clench, my mother's number flashing on the screen. "Samara, you have to come home now." Mum's voice cracked between sobs. "Aaliyah, there's been a terrible accident. She's in critical condition. The doctor's here. They're saying they can't help her." I sat up, already reaching for my laptop. "What happened? Which hospital?" "Memorial General. Please, she needs you. They say she needs specialized surgery, and you're the only one who can arrange it. She might not make it through the night." My hands were already typing emails, making calls. "I'm Dr. Samara Warner, and in moments like these, my reputation as one of the country's top trauma surgeons became both a blessing and a curse." Within 30 minutes, I had secured emergency privileges at Memorial, arranged for a specialist to be on standby, and booked the first flight home. "I'm on my way," I said, throwing clothes into a bag. "Keep me updated on any changes." The flight was a blur of anxiety and old memories. I hadn't been home in 3 years, not since the last emergency that turned out to be manufactured drama. But this was different. This was Aaliyah. When the taxi pulled up to Memorial's emergency entrance, something felt off. The lot was nearly empty. No ambulances, no urgency. The emergency desk clerk looked confused when I mentioned my sister's name. "Aaliyah Gray? We haven't had any major traumas tonight." My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. "We're at the house. Come quickly." The growing knot in my stomach tightened as the taxi turned onto our old street. Christmas lights twinkled in April. Balloons bobbed against the porch railing. Cars lined the driveway. I stepped out, medical bag in hand, the sound of laughter and music spilling from inside. The door flew open before I could knock. "Surprise!" My sister Aaliyah stood there, champagne glass in hand, wearing a sparkly dress. "Oh my God! You actually brought your doctor bag. That's hilarious." The world tilted sideways as reality set in. Behind her, a banner read, "Happy 58th birthday, Mary!" "Samara, sweetie!" Mum emerged from the crowd, arms wide. "You made it! I knew you would. You told me Aaliyah was dying." My voice came out flat, clinical. "Oh, don't be so dramatic." Aaliyah rolled her eyes. "Mum just knew you wouldn't come otherwise. And look, you're here. Finally." The party guests, faces I barely recognised, watched with awkward interest. Dad stood in the corner studying his shoes. Aunt Joanna sipped her wine, avoiding eye contact. Come in. Mum pulled me inside. "Everyone's been asking about you. Did you know Aaliyah's husband Miles just made partner? And wait until you hear about the amazing investment opportunity we found." I smiled tightly, my fingers clenching around my bag's handle. The same bag I'd packed with emergency supplies, thinking my sister was bleeding out somewhere. The same sister now dragging me toward a cake, laughing about how I'd totally fallen for it. "You must be exhausted from your flight," Mum said, steering me toward the kitchen. "But now that we have you here, sweetie, there's one more surprise." I caught my reflection in the window, still wearing my hospital badge, hair messy from the rush. A trauma surgeon who could handle the bloodiest emergencies, but somehow never saw her own family's cuts coming. My phone buzzed again. The specialist I called in was asking for an update on the critical patient. The hospital administrator wanted to know why I'd activated emergency protocols. The chief of surgery needed to discuss my sudden leave of absence. "Actually, Mom," I said, my voice steady as a scalpel, "I think I'm the one with a surprise." She beamed, misreading my tone completely. "That's wonderful." "Everyone, Samara has an announcement." The room turned to face me, expectant faces glowing in the party lights. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. No idea that this time, the emergency was real, just not the one they had invented. I felt something shift inside me, like a bone finally breaking clean after years of hairline fractures. My smile remained fixed, professional, as I reached for a glass of champagne. This would be my last performance as the dutiful daughter they could summon at will. They wanted me here so badly. Fine. They'd get exactly what they deserved. To family, I raised my glass, watching Mom's eyes shine with victory. And to surprises. "It's such a wonderful investment opportunity," Mom gushed over breakfast the next morning. "Beachfront property, private access, and the price is just incredible." I stirred my coffee, watching the cream create perfect spirals. After last night's party died down, they'd insisted I stay in my old room. The posters were still on the walls, frozen in time like a museum of teenage dreams. "We just need a small favour," Dad finally spoke up, sliding a folder across the table. "The bank wants additional security on the loan, with your income." I opened the folder. Inside was a loan application for $400,000, already filled out with my information. They'd even forged my signature on several documents. "You forged my signature?" I kept my voice neutral, clinical. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Aaliyah waltzed in, still in her pyjamas at noon. "It's not like you wouldn't have signed it anyway. You're always so uptight about everything." "Like last night's fake emergency?" I asked. "God, are you still hung up on that?" Aaliyah rolled her eyes. "It worked, didn't it? You're here. And honestly, the way you showed up with your little doctor bag was priceless. Right, Mom?" Mom reached across the table, patting my hand. "Sweetie, we just miss you. You're always so busy with your important surgeon life, never having time for family. Sometimes we need to get creative." "Creative?" I repeated. "Like the time you told me Dad was having a heart attack." "That was different," Mum waved dismissively. "We really did think it might be his heart. It turned out to be indigestion, but better safe than sorry. Or when Aaliyah supposedly had appendicitis during my board certification exam." "I did have terrible cramps," Aaliyah protested. "How was I supposed to know it was just period pain? The memories surfaced like air bubbles in blood. Missed opportunities, sabotaged interviews, manufactured crises, always timed perfectly to derail my plans. Each time I'd come running, each time they'd laugh it off as family looking out for family. "The condo closes tomorrow," Dad said quietly. "We need an answer today." I stood up, walking to the window. Outside, Miles was pulling up in his new Mercedes. Another investment opportunity success story, no doubt. Show me the property details, I said. Mum practically bounced to get another folder. It's absolutely perfect. There's even room for all of us to stay when we visit you in the city. When you visit me? Well, of course. We'll need somewhere to stay when we come up for shopping trips and social events. You have that spare room you never use? I flipped through the glossy brochure, noting the developer's name, Grey Properties, Miles's company, everything connected like veins leading to a hemorrhage. I'll think about it, I said. Think about it. Mum's voice sharpened. Sweetie, we need an answer now. The opportunity closes today. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me, I echoed. Yes. Who supported you through medical school? Who was there when you needed us? I paid my own way through medical school, with loans, which I'm still paying off. But we gave you a home to come back to. Unlike you, Aaliyah understands family loyalty. She's warm, she's present, she's broke, I finished. And now you need my money. The kitchen fell silent. Dad studied his coffee. Aaliyah's face flushed red. You know what your problem is, Samara? Aaliyah spat. You think you're better than us just because you cut people open for a living. You've always been like this, cold, calculating, keeping score. I'm not keeping score, I said quietly. I'm just done playing the game. Mum's face crumpled into familiar tears. How can you be so cruel after I raised you, loved you? I'll think about it, I repeated, gathering my things. I have some calls to make. Work calls, Aaliyah sneered. Running away again? I paused at the door, remembering something. Actually, I need to call the hospital administrator. Clear up that emergency protocol I activated last night. Interesting thing about false medical emergencies. They're technically fraud when they involve hospital resources. The colour drained from Mum's face. Samara, you wouldn't... Like you said, Mum. Sometimes we need to get creative. I walked out, already pulling up my phone contacts. First call, my old friend Lena, now a local attorney. Second, the county records office. Third, the state medical board's fraud division. They wanted to play games? Fine. But this time, I was changing the rules. Behind me, I heard Mom's voice. She'll come around. She always does. I smiled. They had no idea what was coming. Holy shit, Samara. Lena spread the documents across her desk. This is way bigger than family drama. These property deals, the zoning changes, there's serious fraud here. I sat in her law office, watching the afternoon sun cast shadows across years of carefully orchestrated deception. Keep going. Your brother-in-law's company has been buying up properties just before mysterious zoning changes make them worth 10 times more. And look at this signature. She held up a document. Your father's name is on half these deals. Dad's always been their rubber stamp. This isn't just rubber stamping. This is criminal liability. Lena leaned back. Does he even know? My phone buzzed. Another text from Mum about the condo deadline. I ignored it. What about the trust documents? I asked. Lena pulled out another file. Your grandmother's trust is ironclad. They needed your signature to access it, which you gave them 5 years ago. Under duress, I interrupted. After they claimed Aaliyah needed emergency surgery. Jesus. Lena shook her head. You know, I always wondered why you left town so fast after residency. I had my reasons. My phone buzzed again. Aunt Joanna this time. Your mother's heartbroken. Please call her. Speaking of reasons, Lena said, I found something interesting. She played an audio file on her computer. Mum's voice filled the room, and Samara's too obsessively honourable to ever retaliate. That's why she's perfect, all ethics and no backbone, just like her father. When was this? I asked. Last week, from the country club security system. Your Aunt Joanna was there too. I remembered Joanna's voice from 15 years ago. If you tell anyone about Aaliyah's situation, it'll destroy this family's reputation. Is that what you want? I need you to draw up some papers, I said. Revocation of power of attorney, trust access, everything. Already done. Lena slid a stack of documents forward. But Samara, are you sure about this? Once you start, there's no going back. My phone buzzed a third time. A photo from Aaliyah. Her and Mum crying together, captioned, Family is forever, when they're not being selfish. They've never worried about going back, I said, reaching for a pen. Why should I? An hour later, I walked into the local diner where my parents were regulars. The waitress recognised me immediately. Dr. Samara, your mum was just here bragging about your visit. She mentioned a beautiful beach condo. Really? I smiled. Did she mention where she got the money for it? Back at the house, I played the perfect daughter. Listened to Mum's hints about the loan deadline. Nodded at Aaliyah's pointed comments about family loyalty. Watched Dad shuffle papers in his study, oblivious to the noose tightening around his neck. I found some old photos, Mum said over dinner. Remember this one? Your high school graduation. You almost missed it because you insisted on doing that hospital volunteer program. The program that got me into medical school, I noted. You were always so focused on leaving, Aaliyah said, while I stayed and built something real here with Miles. How is the real estate business? I asked innocently. I heard the zoning board's been very cooperative. Miles coughed. Dad looked up sharply. Just amazing, Aaliyah beamed. Miles is so good at seeing opportunities. Unlike some people who waste their lives in hospitals. My phone lit up with a message from Lena. Documents filed. Trust access revoked. You're clear. You know what I remember about graduation? I said, standing up. How Aunt Joanna convinced me to cover for you that week, Aaliyah. What was it she said? Family protects their own? The colour drained from Aaliyah's face. Joanna, who'd joined us for dinner, set down her fork. Samara, Mum warned. Some things are better left in the past. You're right, I smiled. The past is done. Just like my access to grandmother's trust, I revoked it this afternoon. The silence was surgical, perfect, clean. You... what? Mum whispered. I also filed a formal complaint about those zoning irregularities. Anonymous, of course. Family protects their own, right? You can't do this, Aaliyah started. Actually, I can. And I did. Consider it my contribution to family loyalty. I walked out, leaving them with their cold dinner and colder realizations. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. This is Detective Roberts. We need to discuss some documents that came across our desk. The game was changing, and I was just getting started. I'm calling to verify the trust revocation, the bank manager said over the phone. You understand this terminates all existing credit lines and automated payments linked to the account? Yes. I watched the sunrise from my hotel room, having moved out of the house last night. And I want a complete audit of all transactions from the past 5 years. Of course, Dr. Samara. And regarding the mortgage payments for the property on Oak Street, stop those immediately. A knock at my door interrupted the call. Aunt Joanna stood there, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the room. I ended the call. About what? Old times? Like when you helped them hide Aaliyah's abortion while I took the blame for missing that scholarship interview. You were stronger. You could handle it. Joanna paced the room. Aaliyah was fragile. Fragile enough to destroy my reputation at church. To let Mom tell everyone I was acting out when really I was covering for her precious baby. That was 15 years ago. And nothing's changed. I pulled out my laptop, turning it to show her the screen. Except now I have proof of everything. She stared at the documents displayed. Bank statements, text messages, recorded calls. Years of manipulation catalogued with surgical precision. What do you want? She asked quietly. I want you to deliver a message. Tell them to stop calling. Stop showing up. Stop pretending we're one big happy family. They're your family. No. They're parasites who found a reliable host. My phone chimed. An email from a local reporter responding to my tip about zoning irregularities. Another piece falling into place. You'll regret this, Joanna said. When you're alone in that big city with your fancy career, you'll miss having people who love you. Love me? I laughed. Let's talk about love. Remember when Mom convinced the medical school board I was unstable because I wouldn't defer my admission to help with Aaliyah's wedding? She was trying to keep you close. She was trying to keep me controlled. But that's over now. Joanna's face hardened. You think you're so clever with your evidence and your plans, but you're still that scared little girl who needed family approval. You're right. I was scared. Not anymore. After she left, I met with the reporter at a coffee shop across town. She took notes as I laid out the story, my identity hidden under the pseudonym Ruth Kessler. This is explosive stuff, she said. The zoning fraud alone. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Aaliyah. "Sam, I need you for real this time, please." Something in her voice made me pause. Not the usual dramatic flair, real fear. I played it again, analysing each tremor and break like reading vital signs. This wasn't another manipulation. Something was wrong. The reporter was still talking about deadlines and sources. I held up a hand. "Give me 24 hours before you run anything," I said. "There might be more to the story." Back in my hotel room, I called Lena. "Can you check police reports from last night? Anything involving Aaliyah or Miles?" She was quiet for a moment. "There's an incident report. Aaliyah was picked up for reckless driving. Blood alcohol level was significant." "Let me guess, no booking record?" "Someone called it in as a medical emergency. She's at Memorial now." Of course. Their favourite play. Turn crimes into medical issues. Make everything disappear with the right connections. Another call came in. "Mom. Sweetie, about what happened. We can discuss it later. Right now, we need your help. Aaliyah's in trouble." "Real trouble or manufactured trouble? Please," her voice cracked. "The hospital is asking questions about her blood work. If you could just talk to them." I ended the call, staring at the growing web of evidence on my laptop. One signature from me could make this disappear. Keep it out of the papers. Protect the family name one more time. My finger hovered over the reporter's number. Delete the story? Help them cover it up again? Then I remembered Joanna's words. "You were stronger. You could handle it." I dialed a different number, the district attorney's office. "This is Dr. Samara Warner. I need to report an attempted medical fraud at Memorial Hospital. Sometimes the kindest cut is the one that finally lets the infection drain." My phone lit up with another message from Aaliyah. "If you don't help me, I'll lose everything." "No," I whispered to the empty room. "You'll just lose your safety net. Welcome to reality, sister." The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Aaliyah's mascara-streaked face. She sat in the interview room, her designer dress wrinkled, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Thank God you're here!" She jumped up. "Tell them about my medical condition, the one that affects my blood alcohol readings." Detective Roberts raised an eyebrow. "The condition that mysteriously appears whenever she's caught driving under the influence?" "There's no condition," I said. "And I'm not here to help cover this up." Aaliyah's face crumpled. But you're my sister." "Exactly. Which is why I'm letting this happen." Mum burst through the door, Dad trailing behind her. "Samara, what are you doing? Fix this." "Like you fixed the last 3 DUIs? I turned to Detective Roberts. "You'll find those incidents were mysteriously reclassified as medical emergencies. I've brought the documentation." "You bitch!" Aaliyah lunged forward, but the detective held her back. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Playing God with people's lives just like at your precious hospital." "No, I'm just done playing pretend." I placed a USB drive on the table. "This contains evidence of systematic fraud involving hospital resources to cover up criminal behaviour. I'm formally reporting it as both a physician and a witness." Mum grabbed my arm. "Think about what you're doing. This will ruin her career, her marriage." "Her career?" I laughed. "Her Instagram influencer posts about luxury lifestyle? Or maybe you mean Miles's career building illegal real estate schemes?" "You don't understand," Dad finally spoke. "Miles has powerful friends. If this gets out..." "It's already out." I showed them my phone, the local news website's breaking story about zoning fraud investigations. "The DA's office is very interested in how certain properties got rezoned right after your company acquired them." Aaliyah collapsed into a chair. "You're ice. You know that. Pure ice. You enjoy watching people hurt." "No." I stepped closer. "That's the difference between you and me. I just stopped helping people who set the fire." Detective Roberts cleared his throat. "Ms. Aaliyah, we're ready to process your booking." "Booking?" Mum's voice rose. No, we can work something out. Samara, please, use your hospital connections." "Those connections?" I pulled out my medical badge. "They're investigating every case where I was asked to intervene. Every emergency you manufactured. Every time you used my credentials to bypass the system." "You'll regret this," Aaliyah hissed as the officer led her toward booking. "When you're alone in your perfect little life, you'll realise what you threw away." I watched them fingerprint her, thinking of all the times I'd cleaned up her messes, covered her lies, enabled her chaos. Your sister's right, Mom said quietly. You'll have no one. I already had no one. I just had parasites wearing family masks. Dad touched my shoulder. Samara, please. We can fix this as a family. Family? I shrugged off his hand. Where was family when I needed surgery after that car accident and you used my insurance money for Aaliyah's wedding? Where was family when you sabotaged my residency matches to keep me at the local hospital? We were protecting you. No, you were protecting your investment. I turned to leave, but Mum's voice stopped me. If you walk away now, don't ever come back. Don't worry, I said, without turning around. I won't. Outside, I found Miles waiting by his Mercedes. You think you're so smart, he stepped into my path. But you have no idea what you've started. I know people who can hurt your reputation, just like you're hurting ours. Funny thing about reputations, I smiled. They're a lot like surgical procedures. One wrong move and everything falls apart. Is that a threat? No, that's a diagnosis. And your condition? It's terminal. My phone buzzed, Lena warning me about potential retaliation, but I wasn't worried. Every cut I'd made was precise, documented, and completely legal. They wanted to play with reputations? Fine. Let them learn what happens when you push a surgeon too far. I got into my car, watching Miles storm into the police station in my rearview mirror. He still thought he could fix this with money and connections. He didn't understand that some wounds are meant to bleed. My phone lit up again. A message from an unknown number. You've made some dangerous enemies. Watch your back. I smiled, starting the engine. They still didn't get it. I wasn't watching my back anymore. I was watching them fall. Federal agents raided Grey Properties this morning, Lena announced, dropping a newspaper on my hotel room desk. Your brother-in-law's not looking so smug anymore. I scanned the headline. Local real estate empire under investigation. Allegations of pyramid scheme and fraud. The evidence package you provided was thorough, she continued. The feds are particularly interested in those backdated zoning documents with your dad's signature. My phone buzzed. Another blocked number. I've been getting threats all week, each one more desperate than the last. How's Aaliyah handling it? Still in custody. Turns out this wasn't her first DUI, just the first one that stuck. The DA's office is reviewing all those mysterious medical emergency classifications. A knock at the door interrupted us. Room service, but I hadn't ordered anything. Delivery for Dr. Samara. The attendant held out an envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an old credit card statement showing massive charges from 15 years ago, medical charges. My medical charges from the car accident they'd used to fund Aaliyah's wedding. They're getting desperate, Lena observed. Good. I pulled out my laptop. Time for phase 2. Within hours, every bank connected to my family's finances received formal fraud alerts. Credit cards maxed out. Accounts frozen. The beach condo deal not just withdrawn, but flagged for suspicious activity. My phone rang. Mum. What have you done? She screamed. My cards are declined everywhere. The bank won't even let me access my accounts. Funny how that works, I said. Almost like having your medical emergency turned into someone else's wedding fund. That was different. You were young, you healed fine. I have metal pins in my leg. We paid you back. No, you didn't. And now neither will anyone else. I hung up and opened my email. The local community Facebook page was blowing up with a viral post about the fake hospital emergency stunt they'd pulled to get me home. The story had been shared thousands of times, with people adding their own experiences of similar family manipulation. Your mother's trying to spin it, Lena said, scrolling through comments. Says it was a misunderstanding about a surprise party. Check the hospital security footage I leaked. She whistled. That's damning. Your mum crying about a critical accident while Aaliyah's in the background laughing about the prank. My phone buzzed again. Aunt Joanna. I found something in your old room, she said quietly. Notes you wrote as a child. Plans for running away. Lists of places you could hide. I was 12, I replied. Already planning my escape. Samara? What do you want? What will it take to end this? I walked to the window, watching police cars pull up to my parents' house. It's already ending. The DA just froze all assets connected to the real estate scam. Dad and Mum are named participants. They'll lose everything. Like I lost my trust fund, my insurance money, my peace of mind. A commotion outside caught my attention. Officers were leading Dad out in handcuffs while Mum screamed at them from the porch. Neighbours gathered on their lawns, phones recording everything. "You've destroyed this family," Joanna whispered. "No, I just stopped letting them destroy me." After hanging up, I opened my old medical records, the ones from the car accident, 16 years old, metal pins in my leg, while they used the insurance payout for Aaliyah's dream wedding. "She needs this," they'd said. "You're stronger, you'll understand." My phone lit up with a news alert. "Local business owner arrested in federal fraud investigation." Miles's mugshot stared back at me, his smug smile finally gone. "You did it," Lena said softly. "You actually did it." Not quite. I pulled up one last email. My resignation letter to the local hospital board, along with evidence of every time they'd helped cover up my family's emergencies. "They're saying you're heartless," Lena warned, "that you enjoyed watching them fall." Maybe I did. I hit send on the email. Maybe that makes me exactly what they always said I was, cold, calculating, distant. Or maybe it makes you free. Outside, more police cars arrived. More neighbours gathered. More phones recorded the fall of the perfect family facade. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Mum, "Please, we're still your family." I typed back 3 words, "No, we're done." Then I blocked her number, along with every other connection to the life they'd tried to trap me in. Let them call it heartless. Let them call it cold. I called it survival. The community centre buzzed with whispers as I walked in. 3 weeks had passed since everything exploded, and the small town's gossip mill was still churning at full speed. "Did you hear?" a woman stage whispered. "Mary's house is being foreclosed. After all that talk about their beach condo." I kept walking, heading toward the office where Mum volunteered, or used to before everything fell apart. Her desk was already cleared out, her name removed from the volunteer roster. "Dr. Samara?" The director intercepted me. "I assume you're here about your mother's accusations?" "What accusations?" She handed me a letter, Mum's handwriting, claiming I'd forged documents and orchestrated a vendetta against innocent people. "Everything I submitted is authenticated," I said, pulling out my phone. "Would you like to hear the recording of her admitting to the hospital fraud?" "That won't be necessary. Her credibility has been questioned lately." Outside, a crowd gathered around the courthouse steps where Dad was entering for his plea hearing. He'd aged decades in 3 weeks, his shoulders hunched under his suit jacket. "Samara!" Mum's voice cut through the murmur. She pushed through the crowd, designer handbag replaced by a worn purse. "You have to stop this. Your father's taking a plea deal." "Good. He should. They're saying 3 years. Prison, Samara. Your own father. The same father who signed fraudulent documents using my credentials? Who helped steal my insurance money? We were desperate. The market crashed. Aaliyah's wedding plans were already... Save it for your Facebook posts," I cut her off. "The ones claiming I'm mentally unstable, that I'm destroying the family out of jealousy." Her face crumpled. "I'm your mother. Everything I did was to keep this family together." "No. Everything you did was to keep your control." "Please," she grabbed my arm. "Miles is in jail. Aaliyah's marriage is over. She's moving back home, what's left of home. We need you. You need my money, my connections, my silence. I need my daughter. You had your daughter. You just couldn't stop using her." The courthouse doors opened. Dad emerged looking shell-shocked. The plea deal was done. 3 years, Mum whispered. "And all our assets frozen. Where will we live? How will we survive?" The same way I did, without family support. My phone buzzed. A job offer from a prestigious hospital in London. A fresh start, an ocean away from the wreckage. "Dr. Samara," a reporter pushed forward. "Any comment on your family's involvement in the real estate scandal?" "No comment." I started to walk away. "What about the viral posts about fake medical emergencies? Any response to accusations that you're heartless for exposing your own family?" I stopped. Turned back to face the cameras. Heartless. I spent years healing their self-inflicted wounds, covering their crimes, financing their fantasies, until I realised it's sometimes the most caring thing you can do is let people face consequences. Mum's sob carried across the courthouse steps. "Good. Let them record that too." Lena caught up with me at my hotel. "Aaliyah's divorce is final. she's giving evidence against Miles for a lighter sentence on her DUI charges. Of course she is, I continued packing. She always knew how to save herself. The London offer, you're taking it? Already accepted. I fly out next week. You won like no one else could, Lena said quietly. Just be careful. Don't let a hollow victory eat you alive. I paused, holding an old photo I'd found in my childhood room. Me at 12, already wearing a too serious expression. Already planning escapes. It's not hollow, I said. It's just finished. My phone lit up Aunt Joanna again. They're broken, she said without preamble. Was that what you wanted? I wanted them to stop breaking me. And now? What do you want now? I looked at my packed bags, my one-way ticket, my new life waiting across an ocean. I want peace. At what cost? At exactly the cost they deserved. After she hung up, I walked through the hotel room one last time. Outside, the sun set over the small town that had tried to keep me small. My phone buzzed with messages I'd never read, from people I'd never help again. Let them call it cruel. Let them whisper about the doctor who destroyed her family. Let them wonder why I didn't feel guilty. I felt something better than guilt. I felt free. The London hospital was waiting. A new life was waiting. And for the first time, no one could pull me back with a 3 a.m. call about imaginary emergencies. Some surgeries require removing the whole infection, even if it leaves a scar. The London rain tapped against my office window as I reviewed patient files. A familiar rhythm now, like the steady beep of monitors in surgery. My phone lit up, Lena's weekly update. Your dad's halfway through his sentence, she texted. Your mum's working at the mall. Aaliyah's living in their basement, running some MLM scheme on Instagram. I set the phone down without responding. Another text followed. They still ask about you. Every time I see them. The intercom buzzed. Dr. Samara, your package from the States arrived. I wasn't expecting anything. The box sat on my desk, return address from my old hometown's post office. Inside lay a scrapbook, worn and familiar. A note fell out. Found this cleaning the church storage. Thought you should have it. Pastor Mike. The scrapbook opened to baby pictures. Me holding a tiny Alia. Mum looking young and genuine. Dad actually smiling. Before the manipulation. Before the lies. Between the pages I found something else. A folded piece of paper in my childish handwriting. One day I will not need their approval to breathe. My office door opened. Dr. Samara? Emergency in Trauma Bay 3. I closed the scrapbook. What do we have? Car accident. Family of 4. Parents trying to minimise it, but the kids need immediate attention. Something familiar in those words. Parents minimising. Children paying the price. In Trauma Bay 3, I found a scene I knew too well. Parents insisting everything was fine while their children showed clear signs of injury. It's just a small accident, the mother kept saying. We don't need all these tests. I looked at the teenage daughter's eyes, the same desperate plea I used to see in my mirror. Actually, I said, we do need the tests and I'm ordering them now. But this isn't a negotiation. Your children's health isn't something you get to gamble with. Hours later, after ensuring the children got proper care despite their parents' protests, I returned to my office. The scrapbook still sat there, a ghost from another life. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. Samara? Aaliyah's voice. Don't hang up, please. I waited. I get it now. Why you did it. All of it. She paused. I'm in therapy. Real therapy. Not Mom's friend who called everything stress-related. Why are you calling? Because I found my own old journals, full of the same things yours probably were. Escape plans, hidden money, desperate prayers to be somewhere else. I thought of the teenage girl from Trauma Bay 3. But you stayed. I was weaker. No, I said. You were different. That's not the same thing. Silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken histories. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she finally said. Or money. Or anything, really. I just needed you to know I understand now. After she hung up, I opened my laptop. The hospital's charity foundation page showed a new donation, anonymous funding for youth trauma counselling. My phone lit up again. Lena. You okay? She asked. Aaliyah told me she called. I'm fine. Are you? Really? I looked at the scrapbook, then at my medical degrees, my new life, my freedom. There's peace, I said. Not joy, not forgiveness, but peace. Is that enough? Through my window, I watched London's lights flicker on against the darkness. Somewhere in Trauma Bay 3, a teenage girl was getting the help she needed, despite her parents' protests. Tomorrow, there would be others. Yes, I said. It's enough. I closed the scrapbook, but kept the childhood note. Pinned it to my board where I could see it during difficult cases. One day, I will not need their approval to breathe. That day had come. And with it came not happiness, not exactly, but something better. Something earned through every careful cut, every precise incision into the infected past. Something that felt like healing. My pager beeped. Another emergency calling. I grabbed my coat, leaving the ghosts of my family behind in that scrapbook. They had their consequences. I had my peace. And somewhere between the two lay the truth about family, about healing, about survival. Sometimes the deepest wounds heal the cleanest when you stop trying to stitch them to people who keep ripping out the sutures. I headed to the emergency room, ready for whatever came next. Not as anyone's daughter or sister, just as myself. Finally, completely uncompromisingly myself.
I stand frozen behind the oak tree, watching my mother-in-law's lips move with practiced venom. Her voice carries across the backyard, riding the smoke from the grill like a poison seeking its target. Ryan could have done so much better. That woman is nothing but a gold digger with her eyes on our family's money. The laughter that follows slices through me like shattered glass. I'm Amelia. And this is the moment I decide to destroy Margaret Carter's carefully constructed world of country club memberships and social superiority. My fingers dig into the rough bark as I watch her hold court among her friends, all of them nodding along like well-trained puppets. The pearls around her neck catch the afternoon sun, matching the gleam of malice in her eyes. 3 years of enduring her subtle jabs and backhanded compliments, and this is what it comes down to. Did you hear how she maxed out Ryan's credit card last month? Margaret's voice drops to a stage whisper. My poor boy works so hard as a teacher, and she's bleeding him dry. I almost laugh. If she only knew about the 3 tech companies I've built and sold. Or the offshore accounts that would make her family's supposed wealth look like pocket change. But Ryan wanted us to live modestly, to prove we weren't about the money. What a fucking joke that turned out to be. Amelia? Ryan's voice startles me. He's standing there with 2 glasses of wine, concern etched across his face. What are you doing behind the tree? Just listening to your mother's latest performance. My voice comes out steady, surprising even me. She's really outdone herself this time. His face falls. You know how she gets after a few glasses of wine. Just ignore. Don't. I cut him off. Don't make excuses for her. Not anymore. He reaches for my hand, but I step back. Through the gap in the branches, I can see Grace, Ryan's sister. Shifting uncomfortably as Margaret launches into another story about my supposed spending habits. I need to leave, I say, already walking toward the house. Amelia, please. Ryan follows me. Let's just talk about this. I spin around, nearly causing him to spill the wine. Talk about what, Ryan? How your mother has been systematically trying to destroy my reputation since the day we got married. How you've never once stood up to her. That's not fair. What's not fair is watching the man I love stand by while his mother tears me apart. My voice cracks, and I hate myself for it. Do you know what the worst part is? I could buy and sell this entire neighborhood 10 times over. But I've been living like a middle school teacher's wife because you wanted to prove we're not about money. His eyes widen. We'd agreed never to discuss my wealth with his family, but right now, I don't care about our promises. Amelia. Margaret's voice rings out, sickeningly sweet. Leaving so soon, dear? I turn to face her, and something inside me shifts. The hurt crystallizes into something harder, colder. More dangerous. Actually, Margaret, I think I'll stay. I smile, and it feels like baring teeth. I wouldn't want to miss any more of your colorful stories about me. She blanches slightly, but recovers quickly. Oh, I was just telling the ladies about your shopping habits. We're all so concerned about Ryan's finances. Are you? I step closer, close enough to smell her expensive perfume. How thoughtful of you to worry about our finances. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to discuss money in the coming months. I leave her standing there, confusion warring with suspicion on her face. Ryan calls after me, but I keep walking. In my mind, plans are already taking shape, elegant, devastating plans that will make Margaret Carter wish she'd never questioned my worth. Let her think she's won this round. I've got time, money, and nothing left to lose except the facade of the dutiful daughter-in-law. Game on, Margaret. Game fucking on. The silence in our bedroom feels like a living thing, growing heavier with each tick of the clock. Ryan paces, his shadow cutting across the wall like a pendulum. I sit at my vanity, methodically removing my jewelry, each piece hitting the tray with a deliberate clink. You can't just declare war on my mother, he finally says. Watch me. I meet his eyes in the mirror. Unless you prefer I continue being her punching bag? He stops pacing. That's not fair. You know she's just protective. Protective? I spin around. Is that what we're calling public humiliation now? The doorbell rings, saving him from responding. Footsteps thunder up the stairs, and Grace bursts in without knocking, her face flushed. Mom's on the warpath, she announces, dropping onto our bed. She's already called Aunt Susan and half the country club about your disturbing behavior at the barbecue. I laugh, but there's no humor in it. Of course she has. Heaven forbid anyone question St. Margaret's version of events. Amelia, Ryan warns, but Grace cuts him off. No, Ryan, she's right. Mom's being horrible. Grace sits up, her eyes bright. You should have heard her at dinner. She's convinced Amelia's going to bankrupt you and run off with some tech millionaire. If she only knew. The irony makes me want to scream. Your mother needs to understand that actions have consequences, I say, standing up. And I'm done playing the meek daughter-in-law. Ryan runs his hands through his hair. What exactly are you planning? Nothing she hasn't earned. I walk to the closet, pulling out my laptop bag. But first, I need to make a call. It's almost midnight, Ryan protests. Different time zone. I head for the door, but Grace catches my arm. Whatever you're planning, she whispers, I want in. Mom needs to learn she can't control everything. I study her face, seeing the years of frustration written there. Are you sure? This could get messy. I'm sure. Her grip tightens. Besides, someone needs to keep you from going full scorched earth. Ryan steps between us. Both of you need to stop. We can fix this like adults. I'll talk to Mom. Like you've been talking to her for the past 3 years? I shake my head. No more talks, Ryan. It's time for action. My phone buzzes, Liam's calling. Perfect timing. I need to take this, I say, moving toward the door. You two should discuss where you stand, because this train's leaving the station with or without you. In the hallway, I hear Ryan's muffled voice, Grace, you can't encourage this. Her response is clear and sharp, someone has to stand up to her, Ryan. If not us, then who? I smile, heading downstairs to the kitchen. Liam's voice greets me through the speaker, tell me you haven't killed anyone yet. Not yet, I reply, opening my laptop. But I need access to those offshore accounts we set up after the last company sale. Jesus, Ames. What are you planning? Remember that charity foundation we discussed? I type in my passwords, watching numbers scroll across the screen. Time to make it active. Very, very active. Margaret, he asks, knowing me too well. Margaret, I confirm. She wants to paint me as a gold digger? Fine. Let's show her what real money looks like. This is going to blow up in your face, he warns, but I can hear him typing. How much do you need? I name a figure that makes him whistle. That's not revenge, Ames. That's nuclear war. No, I correct him, hearing footsteps on the stairs. That's just the opening move. Ryan appears in the doorway, his face set in determination. We need to talk. I'll call you back, I tell Liam, closing the laptop. Ready to pick a side, husband? He meets my gaze, and for the first time tonight, I see something other than conflict in his eyes. I pick us, he says quietly. But whatever you're planning, there has to be limits. I stand, walking to him slowly. Limits are what got us here. Your mother certainly doesn't believe in them. He takes my hands, and I feel the slight tremor in his. Promise me you won't destroy our family completely. I kiss him softly, tasting the fear and love mingled on his lips. I promise to leave enough pieces for rebuilding. But first, some things need to burn. The black Amex card hits the counter with a satisfying thunk. The saleswoman's eyes widen. She knows Ryan's teacher's salary couldn't possibly qualify for this level of credit. I smile, channeling Margaret's country club superiority as I gesture to the display case. I'll take the full set. And the matching earrings. 3 hours and 6 boutiques later, I'm surrounded by shopping bags in our driveway when Margaret's Mercedes pulls up. Perfect timing. She steps out, her face twisting into exactly the expression I'd hoped for. Retail therapy? Her voice drips with manufactured concern. Just a little shopping for the charity gala next month. I deliberately fumble with the bags, letting her see the designer names. Ryan's been so generous lately. Her nostrils flare. Has he now? I check my watch. Ryan should be home from school any minute. The trap is set. Would you like to come in, Margaret? I'd love your opinion on these pieces. She follows me inside, practically vibrating with righteous indignation. I spread the purchases across the dining room table: jewelry, designer clothes. A limited edition handbag that costs more than Ryan makes in 2 months. This is unconscionable, Margaret finally explodes. You're bleeding my son dry. The front door opens. Right on schedule. Mom? Ryan calls out. What are you doing here? He enters the dining room and freezes, taking in the explosion of luxury goods. His face pales. Amelia, what is all this? Your wife's latest spending spree, Margaret cuts in. On your credit cards. I maintain my carefully crafted smile. Don't worry, darling. We can afford it. We most certainly cannot. Ryan picks up a price tag and nearly chokes. This is more than my yearly salary. Margaret pounces. I've been warning you about this, Ryan. She's using you for your money, and now she's not even trying to hide it. The doorbell rings again. Grace walks in, followed by Tommy. My audience is complete. What's going on? Grace asks, eyeing the table. Your brother's wife is finally showing her true colors, Margaret announces. Look at this obscene display of. Actually, I interrupt, I think it's time for some truth-telling. I pull out my phone, opening my banking app. Ryan, remember when you insisted we keep my finances private? Well, I think that arrangement has expired. Margaret scoffs. What finances? Everyone knows you were practically penniless when you married Ryan. I turn my phone toward her, watching her face as she processes the number on the screen. Her mouth opens and closes without sound. That's just one account, I say softly. Would you like to see the others? The room goes deadly quiet. Ryan sinks into a chair, while Grace lets out a low whistle. I don't understand, Margaret stammers. No, you don't. I step closer to her. You never bothered to understand anything about me. You were too busy assuming I was after your family's modest wealth to realize I could buy this entire neighborhood without blinking. Tommy clears his throat. Margaret, perhaps we should. No, she cuts him off. This is obviously some kind of trick. Some elaborate deception to. To what? I laugh. To prove that your precious family money means nothing to me? Mission accomplished. Ryan stands suddenly. You did all this to prove a point? No, I turn to him, my voice softening. I did this because your mother has spent 3 years spreading rumors about me, questioning my character, and undermining our marriage. And you let her. So this was all revenge? Grace asks. This was truth, I correct her. And we're just getting started. Margaret straightens her spine. Well, if you think this changes anything. Oh, it changes everything, I interrupt. Because tomorrow morning, I'm announcing a new charitable foundation. The Carter Foundation for Educational Excellence. And guess who's going to be very publicly excluded from the board? The color drains from Margaret's face as she realizes the social implications. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. I begin gathering the shopping bags. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to return all this. It was just for show, unlike some people. I don't actually need to flaunt my wealth to feel superior. As they file out, Ryan remains, staring at me like he's never seen me before. Was any of it real? He whispers. Every moment with you was real, I answer. Everything else was just theater for your mother's benefit. The question is, what's real for you? He doesn't answer, and I don't wait for him to try. Liam's penthouse feels like a sanctuary after 3 days of Ryan's silence. I stand at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights blur through my third glass of wine. You look like hell, Liam says, refilling my glass. Margaret's cutting Ryan out of the inheritance. I press my forehead against the cool glass. She made the announcement at their weekly family dinner. The one I wasn't invited to. Isn't that exactly what you wanted? To prove she's the manipulative one? I turn to face him. Ryan hasn't spoken to me since the shopping incident. He's sleeping in the guest room. Ah. Liam settles into his leather armchair. So the plan's working perfectly, except for the small detail of destroying your marriage. My phone buzzes, a text from Grace. Mom's telling everyone you're having an affair. With a wealthy investor. Says she has proof. Fuck. I throw the phone onto the couch. She's escalating. What now? Before I can answer, my phone rings. Ryan's face appears on the screen. I answer on speaker. Where are you? His voice is tight, controlled. Working late with Liam. A pause. At his penthouse? The accusation hits me like a slap. Are you serious? Mom showed me the photos. My wine glass slips from my fingers, shattering on the hardwood. Liam jumps up, but I wave him off. What photos, Ryan? You entering his building. Multiple nights this month. The expensive restaurants. The late meetings. His voice cracks. Were you laughing at me this whole time? The poor teacher husband while you played with your tech millionaire friend? Ryan. Just tell me one thing. Was this all a game? Marrying me, hiding your wealth, this revenge against my mother, was it all just entertainment for you and Liam? Liam reaches for the phone, but I stop him. Come to the penthouse, I say. See for yourself what's really happening. I don't think. 30 minutes. Or you can believe your mother's lies and throw away 3 years of marriage. Your choice. The line goes dead. Liam starts cleaning up the broken glass. You know this is exactly what Margaret wanted, he says. To make you look like the villain. She's had me followed. I laugh, but it sounds more like a sob. All this time I thought I was the one in control. You still are. Liam stands, glass fragments tinkling in his palm. But you need to decide what matters more. Winning against Margaret or saving your marriage? I don't know anymore. I sink onto the couch. When did I become the person who'd risk everything just to prove a point? When Margaret Carter made you feel worthless. He dumps the glass in the trash. But you're not playing her game anymore, Ames. You're playing something much more dangerous. The elevator dings. Ryan steps out, looking exhausted. His eyes take in the broken glass, the wine, Liam's concerned face. "Show me," he says. I pull out my laptop, opening files I'd hoped never to share. Security footage of Margaret hiring the private investigator. Email threads showing her methodical campaign to discredit me at every charity board and social club in town. Bank statements proving she'd tried to access information about my finances months before the barbecue incident. She's been planning this for years, I say quietly. Waiting for the right moment to prove I was exactly who she claimed I was. And instead of telling me, you decided to play right into her hands. Ryan's voice is hollow. You became exactly what she accused you of being. No, Liam interrupts. She became what your mother feared most, someone powerful enough to challenge her control over you. Ryan looks at me, really looks at me, for the first time in days. What happens now? I close the laptop. That depends on you. I can keep fighting this war with your mother, or we can leave. Start fresh somewhere she can't touch us. No more games, no more secrets. Running away won't solve anything, he says, but I hear the longing in his voice. Neither will staying to fight a battle that's already cost us too much. The city lights flicker behind us, casting shadows that hide as much as they reveal. In the silence, I realize we're all waiting to see which version of truth will finally break this stalemate of lies. The invitation to the Carter Foundation Gala sits on my desk like a loaded gun. I've spent the morning signing checks with enough zeros to make Margaret's inheritance look like pocket change. Each signature feels like another nail in someone's coffin, I'm just not sure whose anymore. My phone lights up with Grace's text, Mom's planning something for the gala. Dad's trying to talk her down, but she's beyond reason. The door opens and Ryan walks in, still wearing his teaching clothes. He looks older somehow, worn down by the weight of choices neither of us should have had to make. The school board accepted my resignation, he says quietly. My hand freezes mid-signature. You didn't tell me you were resigning. You didn't tell me you were buying the entire east wing of the hospital in your maiden name. I set down the pen. That was supposed to be a surprise for the gala announcement. Like the surprise of finding out my mother's been admitted for anxiety attacks? Or the surprise of discovering you've been systematically buying up every company she's invested in? The accusation hangs between us like poison gas. Before I can respond, Liam calls. Turn on the news, he says without preamble. Channel 8. The TV flickers to life, showing Margaret standing outside her country club. She's wearing her perfectly pressed tennis whites, her face a mask of concerned motherly worry. Deeply concerned about the mental state of my daughter-in-law, she's saying. The excessive spending, the erratic behavior. We're organizing an intervention because we love her and want to help. Ryan mutes the TV. She's playing her final card. She's trying to make me look unstable. I laugh, but it sounds unhinged even to my ears. Perfect timing, right before I announce the foundation. Are you? His voice is careful, measured. Unstable? I stand, walking to the window. Below, I can see reporters already gathering at our gate. Would an unstable person have orchestrated all this? The foundation, the hospital wing, the systematic dismantling of your mother's social standing? That's not an answer, Amelia. My phone buzzes again, Tommy Carter's name appears on the screen. I've never received a call from Ryan's father before. Hello? Amelia. His voice is grave. Margaret's had another episode. She's being transferred to the psychiatric ward. The irony hits me like a physical blow. Which hospital? The one you just bought. I end the call, turning to Ryan. Your mother's being committed. To my hospital. He sinks into a chair. This has to stop. It will. At the gala. I pick up the invitation. When everyone sees exactly who your mother really is. And who you've become. The question strikes harder than he probably intended. I look at my reflection in the window, designer suit, perfect makeup. Eyes burning with something that looks uncomfortably like Margaret's determination. The gala invitations went out this morning, I say instead of answering. Every social contact your mother has ever cultivated will be there. The hospital board, the country club committee, the charity league. You're going to destroy her. She tried to have me committed. And you drove her to a psychiatric ward. We stare at each other across the room that suddenly feels too small for all our unspoken accusations. My phone rings again, Grace. Mom's asking for you, she says when I answer. She says she'll tell everyone the truth at the gala. About everything. What truth? I don't know. But Amelia. She hesitates. She's not faking this breakdown. I end the call, feeling the weight of every decision I've made pressing down on me. The foundation announcement. The hospital wing. The carefully orchestrated revenge that's spiraled so far beyond my control. The gala's tomorrow, I tell Ryan. Whatever truth your mother thinks she has, whatever game she's playing. It ends there. He stands, straightening his tie like he's preparing for battle. You're right. It ends tomorrow. One way or another. As he leaves, I look back at my reflection. The woman staring back at me looks exactly like what Margaret always feared, powerful, ruthless, dangerous. I wonder when I stopped trying to prove her wrong and started proving her right. The ballroom of the Grand Plaza sparkles like a minefield of crystal and champagne. I stand at the podium, scanning faces in the crowd, society matrons clutching their pearls, board members shifting in their seats. Ryan's family huddled together like survivors of a shipwreck. The only person missing is Margaret. Ladies and gentlemen, I begin, my voice carrying across the hushed room. Welcome to the inaugural Carter Foundation Gala. The double doors burst open. Margaret glides in, still wearing her hospital gown beneath Tommy's suit jacket. The whispers start immediately, rippling through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Sorry I'm late, she announces, her voice clear and steady. I wouldn't miss my daughter-in-law's big moment. Ryan starts to rise, but Grace pulls him back down. I continue as if nothing's happened. Tonight marks the beginning of a new chapter in educational funding. Tell them, Amelia. Margaret walks closer, her hospital bracelet catching the light. Tell them about the Real foundation of your wealth. My prepared speech crumples in my fist. Security. About how you orchestrated this whole charade. She's halfway to the podium now. About the shell companies? The insider trading? The room goes deadly silent. Liam appears at my elbow, whispering urgently, she's bluffing. But I see the folder in Margaret's hand, recognize the logo of the private investigator she hired. The same one who followed me to Liam's penthouse. Mrs. Carter, I say into the microphone, perhaps we should discuss this privately. Like you discussed buying control of my hospital privately? She reaches the stage. Or how you privately manipulated the stock of every company I invested in. Ryan stands now, moving toward us. Mother, that's enough. No. She opens the folder. Your wife isn't just a gold digger, Ryan. She's a fraud. And I can prove it. The room spins slightly. I see Grace's horrified face, Tommy's resigned expression, the hungry eyes of the society vultures ready to feast on my downfall. These documents, Margaret continues, show a pattern of illegal trading dating back to her first company. The wealth she's been flaunting? Built on fraud. That's impossible, Liam cuts in. I handled those deals myself. He stops, realizing too late what he's admitted. The whispers grow louder. Yes, Margaret smiles. You did. And now you're both implicated. My carefully constructed revenge crumbles like a house of cards. I look at Ryan, see the doubt creeping into his eyes. The SEC has copies of everything, Margaret announces to the room. They're very interested in the Carter Foundation's funding sources. The microphone feedback shrieks as I step back. Faces blur together, accusatory, triumphant, shocked. All my power, all my careful planning, undone by the one thing I never suspected Margaret would find. You want truth? My voice sounds strange, distant. Here's truth. I did everything you accused me of. The trading, the manipulation, all of it. Because people like you, Margaret, people born into privilege, never believed someone like me could succeed honestly. Amelia, Ryan warns, but I'm beyond warnings now. So yes, I broke laws. I cut corners. I became exactly what you always thought I was. I laugh, and it sounds like breaking glass. Congratulations, Margaret. You finally caught the gold digger you were looking for. Security's here, Liam murmurs. We need to leave. Now. Through the chaos, I see Grace crying, Tommy holding Margaret with something like pride, and Ryan standing absolutely still. Watching me with eyes I no longer recognize. I'm sorry, I whisper, though I'm not sure who I'm apologizing to anymore. As security approaches, I feel Margaret's triumph like a physical weight. She didn't just destroy my revenge, she proved herself right. Liam grabs my arm, pulling me toward the service exit. The last thing I see is Ryan, turning away as his mother's victory becomes my complete destruction. I wanted to prove Margaret wrong about who I was. Instead, I proved her right about who I'd become. The hotel suite feels like a prison cell, even with its luxury furnishings. I've been here for 3 hours when there's a knock at the door. Not Liam with more legal updates. Not the SEC agents who've been circling like vultures. Grace stands in the hallway, holding a manila envelope. Mom sent me, she says, stepping inside. To gloat? To deliver these. She hands me the envelope. The original documents. She's keeping copies, of course. I dump the contents onto the coffee table, years of financial records, trading patterns, corporate structures I'd thought were buried forever. Why? Because she wants to make a deal. The door opens again. Margaret walks in, still wearing Tommy's jacket over her hospital gown. She looks smaller somehow, more human, but her eyes are sharp as ever. Leave us, Grace. Grace hesitates, then squeezes my hand before going. The click of the door feels like a jail cell closing. Quite the performance tonight, Margaret says, settling into an armchair. You really had everyone fooled. Including Ryan. Like you fooled everyone with your convenient breakdown? I remain standing. The hospital stay was a nice touch. Oh, the breakdown was real. She smooths her gown. Finding out your daughter-in-law is actually a criminal mastermind can do that to a person. What do you want, Margaret? The same thing I've always wanted. She leans forward. My son's happiness. I laugh. By destroying his wife? By saving him from someone who never loved him enough to be honest. The words hit harder than any SEC investigation. You don't know anything about my love for Ryan. I know you loved winning more. She gestures at the scattered documents. Every move you made wasn't about proving your worth, it was about proving you could beat me. You started this war. And you became exactly what I accused you of being to win it. Her voice softens. We're more alike than you think, Amelia. The truth of it burns like acid. The deal, Margaret. What is it? Leave. Tonight. Sign over control of the foundation to Ryan, admit to the fraud, take the fall. I'll make sure Liam stays clear of any investigation. And if I refuse? Then we all burn together. She stands. Ryan, me, you, Liam, everyone loses everything. My phone buzzes, a text from Ryan. Are you still the woman I married? He'll never forgive you, I say. He'll heal. But if you stay, if you fight this, he'll spend years watching both of us destroy each other in court. She moves to the door. You have 1 hour to decide. After she leaves, I stare at the documents, at the evidence of every compromise, every shortcut, every decision that led me here. My phone buzzes again, Liam this time, SEC offering deal. Limited immunity for testimony against larger players. The irony hits me, Margaret and I both tried to protect Ryan in our own twisted ways. Both of us too proud, too certain of our own righteousness to see what we were becoming. I pick up my phone, typing quickly, I accept the deal. Not to Margaret. To the SEC. The door opens one final time. Ryan stands there, looking as exhausted as I feel. I got your message, he says. Which one? Both. He steps inside. The SEC agents and the one about still being the woman you were. And? I don't know anymore. He picks up one of the documents. But I know who you are right now, in this moment, matters more than who either of you tried to make each other be. I take the paper from him, adding it to the pile. I'm turning myself in. Full confession. Your mother, Liam, everyone else stays clear. That's not. The woman you married would have done the right thing from the start. I meet his eyes. Maybe I can be her again by doing it now. He doesn't try to stop me as I gather the documents. Doesn't offer false comfort or easy forgiveness. Just watches as I choose, finally, to end this war not with victory or defeat, but with truth. Sometimes winning means being the first to surrender. The visiting room at the minimum security facility smells like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Margaret sits across from me, her perfect posture unchanged by the plastic chair. We stare at each other through the morning light, two generals surveying the battlefield after the war. The foundation's doing well, she says finally. Ryan's expanded the scholarship program. I know. I fold my hands on the table. Grace sends me the quarterly reports. She misses you. Margaret smooths her skirt, a nervous gesture I've never seen before. We all do, in our own ways. Even you? Especially me. She meets my eyes. It's quiet without a worthy opponent. I almost laugh at that. Almost. Is that why you're here? To reminisce about our little war? I'm here because it's time. She places a folder between us. The SEC has reviewed your cooperation. With my statement and Tommy's influence on the board. I don't want your help, Margaret. This isn't help. It's acknowledgement. She pushes the folder closer. We destroyed each other so completely that there's nothing left to fight over. I open the folder, early release recommendations, character statements, documentation of my complete cooperation. A path back to freedom, wrapped in Margaret Carter's precise handwriting. Why? Because you chose truth over victory. She leans back. In the end, you became better than both of us. The door opens. Ryan walks in, looking older in his suit and tie, the new foundation director's uniform. He carries a small potted plant, barely surviving in its plastic container. The garden at home needed thinning, he says, setting it between us. Thought you might want something green in here. Margaret stands, touching my shoulder as she passes, the first time she's ever initiated contact. I'll leave you too. After she's gone, Ryan takes her place. We sit in silence, watching the weak sunlight struggle through the plant's leaves. You could have taken her deal that night, he says. Could have run, started over somewhere else. And proved her right about everything? Instead, you proved her wrong by proving her right. He almost smiles. That's the kind of logic that got us here. I touch one of the plant's leaves. I thought revenge would feel different. More satisfying. And how does truth feel? Expensive. I look around the visiting room. But cleaner, somehow. He reaches across the table, taking my hand. His wedding ring catches the light. He's still wearing it, after everything. The foundation board meets next week, he says. They're reviewing applications for the new executive director position. Ryan. Someone with technical expertise. Financial background. A proven record of learning from mistakes. I withdraw my hand. I'm a convicted felon. You're someone who chose truth when lies would have been easier. He stands. The interview's next Thursday, if you're interested. Mom's vote counts double as board chair. My laugh echoes off the institutional walls. Now that's revenge. No. He touches the plant again. That's growth. After he leaves, I sit alone, watching shadows move across the table. Margaret and I had both been right about each other, and completely wrong. She'd seen the ruthlessness in me, the capacity for destruction. I'd seen the manipulation in her, the need for control. What neither of us had seen was the possibility of something beyond winning or losing. The guard appears to escort me back to my cell. On the table, the plant's leaves stretch toward the window, finding light in the most unlikely place. I leave the folder where it lies. Whatever comes next, freedom, redemption, reconciliation, will come on its own terms, not Margaret's or mine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. Sometimes it's about becoming someone they never imagined you could be, someone you never imagined you could be. Even if that journey leads through a prison cell, a broken family, and a tiny plant reaching for the light. Especially then.
The call came at 3:47 a.m. I remember staring at my phone screen, wondering who would call at such an hour. The hospital's number flashed, sending a chill down my spine before I even answered. My name is Avery, and that call changed everything. Miss Callahan? This is Mercy General Hospital. We need you to come in immediately. Your parents have been in an accident. The drive to the hospital exists in my memory as fragments, red lights bleeding into darkness, windshield wipers fighting against unexpected rain. My hands shaking on the steering wheel. I kept telling myself they were fine, probably just some broken bones or a concussion. Parents don't just die on random Tuesday nights. Except sometimes they do. The impact was instantaneous, the doctor explained, his voice gentle but clinical. They wouldn't have suffered. I stood there in the fluorescent-lit hallway, still wearing my pajama pants and my father's old college sweatshirt, trying to process words that refused to make sense. A drunk driver had crossed the median. My parents' car had flipped 3 times. There was nothing anyone could have done. Would you like to see them? The doctor asked. I shook my head. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing them like that. I wanted to remember them as they were at Sunday dinner just 2 days ago, Mom laughing at Dad's terrible puns, Dad pretending to be offended when I sided with Mom about his new mustache looking ridiculous. A nurse handed me a plastic bag containing their personal effects. Mom's purse, Dad's wallet, their phones, and wedding rings. Such small things to represent entire lives. There's someone who'd like to speak with you, the nurse said, gesturing toward a man in an expensive-looking suit who'd been hovering nearby. He witnessed the accident and stayed to give a statement to the police. The man approached, his expression grave but kind. I'm Marcus Bennett, he said, extending his hand. I'm so sorry for your loss. I tried to help, but he trailed off, and I noticed his suit was stained with what looked like blood. I should have thanked him for trying to help, for staying, for caring enough to want to speak with me. Instead, I threw up in a nearby trash can. Marcus didn't flinch. He just produced a handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to me when I straightened up. Let me call someone for you, he said. Family? Friends? I wiped my mouth, shame mixing with grief. There's no one to call. My parents were it. The words hit me like a physical blow. They were it, I repeated, my voice breaking. Lucy, my best friend, would kill me for not calling her, but I couldn't bear the thought of anyone else's grief right now. I needed to hold myself together, and seeing Lucy break down would shatter what little control I had left. Then let me at least drive you home, Marcus offered. You shouldn't be alone right now, and you're in no condition to drive. I wanted to refuse, to maintain some semblance of independence in a moment when everything felt like it was slipping away. But the thought of getting back in my car, of driving through the same streets where my parents had just... I couldn't do it. Okay, I whispered, clutching the bag of their belongings to my chest. As we walked toward the hospital exit, I caught my reflection in a window, pale, hollow-eyed, lost. Behind me, Marcus's reflection watched me with an intensity one was too numb to question. I didn't know then that this night would set in motion events that would test every belief I had about love, family, and justice. I didn't know that Marcus Bennett would become both my salvation and my nightmare. I just knew that in that moment, I was 28 years old and suddenly, catastrophically alone. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first week after my parents' death passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. I sat at their kitchen table, surrounded by manila folders and sympathy casseroles, trying to make sense of insurance forms and funeral arrangements. That's when Marcus showed up again, carrying coffee and a leather briefcase. "I hope you don't mind," he said, setting a cup in front of me. "I remembered you take it with vanilla from the hospital cafeteria." I hadn't remembered telling him that. But grief does strange things to memory. "I'm a financial advisor," he explained, pulling out a chair. "I thought you might need help sorting through all this." Before I could respond, Lucy burst through the front door. She'd been checking on me daily, bringing food I couldn't eat and concern I couldn't handle. "Avery, why aren't you answering your..." She stopped short, eyeing Marcus. "Who's this?" I made introductions, watching Lucy's face shift from surprise to suspicion. Marcus stood, extending his hand with a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I was just offering to help Avery with the estate paperwork," he said. "It can be overwhelming, especially with life insurance claims." Lucy's eyebrows shot up. "And you just happened to stop by?" "Actually, I witnessed the accident," Marcus replied smoothly. "I've been concerned about Avery's well-being." The tension in the room thickened. Lucy crossed her arms, positioning herself between Marcus and me like a shield. "That's very thoughtful," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "But Avery has people to help her." "Right, Avy." I should have agreed with Lucy. Should have noticed how Marcus's jaw tightened at her words, how his fingers drummed once, sharply, against his briefcase. Instead, I heard myself say, "Actually, Lucy, I could use some professional help with this." Lucy's face fell. "Avery, it's just paperwork," I said quickly. "And Marcus knows what he's doing." "Of course he does," Lucy muttered, then louder. "Fine. But I'm staying." Marcus smiled again, all charm. The more the merrier. For the next few hours, Marcus guided me through the maze of documents with practiced ease. He knew exactly which forms needed attention first, which companies to call, what questions to ask. Lucy watched from the couch, her presence both comforting and somehow irritating. "Your parents had excellent life insurance," Marcus noted, reviewing a policy. "But there might be some issues with the payout timing. I could expedite that through my firm." "That would be..." I swallowed hard, remembering Mom's insistence on maintaining those policies. "That would be helpful." "Avery," Lucy interrupted, "can we talk?" "Privately?" In the kitchen, Lucy gripped my arms. "Something's off about him." "Why is he really here?" "He's helping, Lucy. He's inserting himself into your life when you're vulnerable. Don't you think it's convenient that he just happens to be a financial advisor?" I pulled away. Not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes people are just kind. And sometimes they're not, Lucy shot back. "Have you even Googled him? Checked if he really works where he says he does?" I hadn't, and Lucy's question made me feel foolish. But before I could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" he asked, his concern seeming genuine. "I found something interesting in your father's investment portfolio. You might want to take a look." Lucy threw up her hands. "I need to get to work. Call me later, okay?" After she left, Marcus sat closer than before, his shoulder occasionally brushing mine as he explained various financial terms. The house felt different with just us there, quieter, more intimate. "You know," he said softly, "I lost my parents young too. Car accident, actually. That's why I stayed that night at the hospital." I couldn't bear the thought of anyone going through that alone. Something in his voice made me look up. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw past his polished exterior to something raw and familiar, grief recognizing grief. "Thank you," I whispered, meaning it. Later, alone in bed, I checked my phone to find missed calls from Lucy and a text from Marcus. "Let me know if you need anything." Anytime. I should have heard the possessiveness in those words. Should have noticed how quickly he was becoming necessary. Instead, I saved his number and fell asleep clutching my phone, feeling less alone than I had in days. 3 months after my parents' death, Marcus proposed. We were in his penthouse apartment, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. It should have felt magical. Instead, I felt dizzy, unmoored. "It's too soon," I said, staring at the diamond ring that probably cost more than my parents' house. "Is it?" Marcus moved behind me, his hands on my shoulders. "You're drowning in that empty house, Avery. Let me take care of you." I closed my eyes, remembering Mom's voice. "Never let a man rush you into anything, sweetheart." But Mom was gone. And Marcus had been right about everything so far. The insurance money had come through faster with his help. The estate was settled. He'd even found a buyer for my parents' house who'd let me take my time moving out. "I need to think," I said. His fingers tightened slightly on my shoulders. "Of course. Take all the time you need." I called Lucy the next morning. She was already waiting at our usual coffee shop when I arrived. "He what?" Lucy nearly knocked over her latte. "After 3 months? I know it seems fast, but..." "Fast? It's insane." Lucy leaned forward. "What do you even know about him?" "He's successful, kind, stable. Those are resume points, not reasons to marry someone." Lucy pulled out her phone. "Look at this." I did some digging. His first wife left him after 8 months. No explanation, just disappeared to another state. Changed her name. My stomach churned. People have complicated pasts. People have patterns. Lucy's voice softened. "You're grieving, AV. You're vulnerable. And he knows it." I left the coffee shop angry, at Lucy for doubting Marcus, at myself for letting her words plant seeds of doubt. When I got home, Marcus was waiting on my porch. "I thought you had meetings today," I said, fumbling with my keys. "Cancelled them. You're more important." He followed me inside. "Have you thought about my proposal?" I turned to face him, ready to say I needed more time. But something in his expression made me pause. For just a moment, his carefully maintained facade cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. "Yes," I heard myself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." His smile was brilliant, triumphant. "I'll take care of everything. We'll have the wedding next month, before winter sets in." "Next month?" My head spun. "That's 2. Perfect timing," he interrupted smoothly. "And you should move in right away. No sense paying to heat this big house alone." Within days, my life became a whirlwind of wedding plans and moving boxes. Marcus handled everything: the venue, the caterers, even my dress. "You have enough to worry about," he'd say, kissing my forehead whenever I tried to object. The night before the wedding, Lucy showed up at Marcus's penthouse where I was already half moved in. "Don't do this," she pleaded. "Something's wrong." "I can feel it." "You don't know him like I do," I said, but my voice wavered. "Neither do you." Lucy grabbed my hands. "Remember when we were kids, and you always knew when someone was lying? What does your gut tell you about Marcus?" Before I could answer, the front door opened. Marcus stood there, his expression pleasant, but his eyes cold. "Lucy," he said. "It's late. Avery needs her rest before tomorrow." I was just leaving. Lucy hugged me fiercely, whispering, "Call me if you need anything." "Anytime." After she left, Marcus pulled me close. "I know she means well, but Lucy needs to understand that things are different now. We're going to be a family." Family. The word echoed in my chest, filling the hollow space my parents' death had left. But as Marcus led me to bed, I caught our reflection in the window. He looked solid, certain. I looked like a ghost, fading at the edges. That night, I dreamed of my mother. She was trying to tell me something important, but her voice was drowned out by the sound of screeching tires and breaking glass. I woke up gasping, reaching for my phone to call Lucy. Marcus stirred beside me. Everything okay, sweetheart? I put the phone down. Just wedding jitters. He pulled me closer, his arm heavy across my waist. Don't worry. After tomorrow, everything will be perfect. I lay awake until dawn, wondering why perfect suddenly sounded so much like prison. The pregnancy test showed positive 2 months after the wedding. I stared at it in our marble bathroom, my hands shaking. This should have been a moment of pure joy, but my first instinct was to hide it from Marcus. I didn't understand why until that evening, watching him review our monthly expenses on his laptop. You spent $400 at that boutique? He didn't look up. We talked about discretionary spending, Avery. It was for work clothes, I said, touching my still flat stomach. My others don't fit right anymore. Now he looked up, his eyes sharp. Are you? I nodded, forcing a smile. His reaction was everything it should have been: joy, excitement, immediate calls to his family. But something felt off, like watching a perfect performance where you can see the strings. The next morning, I found my credit cards cut up on the kitchen counter. It's for the best, Marcus explained, sliding a new card across the granite. Joint account only. We need to be more careful now that we're having a baby. I picked up the new card. My name was missing from it, just Marcus Bennett in raised letters. I can't access my personal account anymore? Why would you need to? His tone was gentle, reasonable. I make more than enough for both of us. 3 of us now. The pregnancy progressed, and with it, Marcus's control tightened like a slowly turning screw. He hired a recommended doctor without consulting me. Installed security cameras in every room of our home. Started tracking my phone's location in case of emergency. I tried calling Lucy, but my calls kept going to voicemail. Finally, I got a text. Number no longer in service. When I asked Marcus about it, he shrugged. She probably changed carriers. You know how Lucy is, always changing her mind about things. Ethan was born on a stormy Tuesday. Marcus wasn't there. He had an unmissable meeting in Chicago. The nurse asked if I wanted to call someone else, and I realized I had no one left to call. Looking at my son's tiny face, something broke and reformed inside me. This perfect, innocent being depended on me completely, just like I now depended on Marcus. The thought hit me like ice water. When Marcus returned 3 days later, he had papers for me to sign. Just some adjustments to our life insurance and investments, he said, bouncing Ethan with practiced efficiency, making sure everything's properly protected. I scanned the documents, my postpartum fog lifting enough to catch phrases like full financial control and medical proxy. I should have my lawyer look at these, I said. Marcus's bounce hitched for just a second. Don't you trust me, sweetheart? After everything I've done for us. Ethan started crying, a sharp, desperate sound. Marcus handed him back to me with barely concealed irritation. He's always crying, he said later that night, after I'd spent hours trying to soothe our colicky son. Maybe we should hire a night nurse. Give you a break. I don't want a break, I said, holding Ethan closer. I want to be with my son. Our son, Marcus corrected, his smile not reaching his eyes. And I want what's best for both of you. You're clearly overwhelmed. I waited until he fell asleep before slipping into his home office. The papers were still there, along with others, bank statements showing massive transfers, documents about my parents' estate I'd never seen, and a folder labeled Jennifer Bennett, his first wife. Inside was a restraining order, police reports, hospital records. My hands trembled as I took photos with my phone, knowing I had minutes at most before Marcus's security system alerted him to movement in the office. Back in bed, Ethan sleeping against my chest, I felt Marcus stir beside me. Everything okay? He murmured. Perfect, I lied, my heart pounding. Just feeding the baby. He pulled me closer, his arm heavy across both me and Ethan. Possessive. Constraining. I lay awake until dawn, planning my escape, knowing I had to be smarter than Jennifer. Had to protect Ethan at all costs. But first, I needed to find Lucy. The breaking point came on Ethan's first birthday. Marcus had insisted on a lavish party, caterers, photographers, 50 guests I barely knew. I stood in our kitchen, watching him direct the staff like a general commanding troops, while Ethan cried in his high chair. "He needs his nap, Marcus," I said, reaching for our son. "He needs to learn to socialize properly." Marcus intercepted my movement, his fingers wrapping around my wrist. The Hendersons brought their board chairman. Appearances matter. I pulled away, the motion causing a stack of invitations to scatter across the floor. As I bent to pick them up, a familiar name caught my eye: Thompson. Lucy's parents were invited. Why are Tom and Sarah Thompson on the guest list? My voice shook. "You said Lucy moved away." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Did I? Must have been a misunderstanding. Like the misunderstanding about Jennifer? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The kitchen staff suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. "What did you say?" Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. "I found the restraining order," I said, my heart hammering. "The police reports." "What did you do to her, Marcus?" He laughed, a sound that made Ethan whimper. "You've been snooping in my office? That's disappointing, Avery. Very disappointing. Where's Lucy? What did you tell her to make her stay away?" "You should focus on our guests," he said, reaching for Ethan. "I'll take him upstairs." I stepped between them. "Don't touch him. He's my son." "Is he?" "Because the paperwork I found shows you changed his birth certificate. Removed my name as mother." Marcus's mask slipped completely. "You really shouldn't have gone through those files." "Or what? You'll make me disappear like Jennifer." The slap came fast, but I was expecting it. What I wasn't expecting was the phone that clattered from his jacket pocket, my old phone, the one he'd said was accidentally destroyed months ago. We both stared at it. "Quite a collection of texts from Lucy on there," I said, my cheek burning. "Warnings about you. Offers to help me leave. Funny how I never got them." Marcus moved with frightening speed, but I was faster. I grabbed Ethan and backed toward the door. "Think carefully about what you're doing," he said. "You have no money, no family, nowhere to go." I made sure of that. "You made one mistake," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "You let me find those documents about Jennifer. About what you really did with my parents' estate." His face went white. "You don't understand." "I understand enough." I held Ethan tighter. "And so will the police when they see what I sent to my lawyer last week." "You're bluffing. You don't have a lawyer." "Jennifer's lawyer," I corrected. She was very interested in the pattern. The doorbell rang, the first guests arriving. Marcus's carefully constructed facade snapped back into place. "We'll discuss this later," he said, straightening his tie. "Don't make a scene." "No," I said, "we won't." I walked out the front door, past the arriving guests, ignoring their startled looks and Marcus's smooth excuses about my emotional state. I kept walking until I reached the park 3 blocks away, where a familiar figure sat on a bench. "Took you long enough," Lucy said, standing up. "I've been waiting here every day for weeks, hoping you'd figure it out. You never left." "Of course not." She hugged me carefully, mindful of Ethan. "But he had to think I did. Had to think you were completely isolated." "We need to go," I said, looking back toward the house. "He'll come after us." "Let him try." Lucy led me to her car. "Your grandmother Eleanor is waiting. Turns out she's been looking for you since your parents died." Marcus intercepted those calls too. As we drove away, I saw Marcus running down the street in his expensive suit, his mask completely gone. In the rearview mirror, he looked smaller, less powerful. "He'll never stop," I said. "No," Lucy agreed. "But neither will we." Ethan fell asleep in my arms, peaceful for the first time in months. I held him close, knowing the fight ahead would be brutal, but feeling stronger than I had since that first hospital call. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you're really made of. Eleanor's Victorian mansion loomed against the stormy sky like something from a Gothic novel. Lucy pulled into the gravel driveway, and I felt a strange mix of fear and hope. This was my father's childhood home, the place he'd refused to discuss. "She's been waiting for you," Lucy said, killing the engine. Before we reached the porch, the front door swung open. Eleanor Callahan stood there, tall and elegant despite her age, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. "So," she said, eyeing me critically, "you finally figured it out." The first few days at Eleanor's were a blur of lawyers, police reports, and sleepless nights. Marcus's threats came hourly: texts, emails, calls from blocked numbers, each one more desperate than the last. "He's filed for emergency custody," my lawyer said over speakerphone. "Claims you're mentally unstable, a danger to Ethan." Eleanor snorted from her armchair. Of course he did. Men like that always play the same cards. "He's frozen all the accounts," I said. "Even the trust fund for my parents." "That's illegal," Lucy interjected. "The estate money was transferred months ago," I finished. "He had me sign everything over while I was still in the hospital after Ethan's birth." The lawyer's sigh crackled through the speaker. "We'll fight it, but these cases take time. And money." That night, I found Eleanor in her study, surrounded by old photographs. "Your father was wrong about me," she said without looking up. "Just like he was wrong about your mother's accident." My heart stopped. "What?" "Marcus isn't the first man to arrange convenient accidents." She handed me a yellowed newspaper clipping. "Your grandfather was very good at making things look unintentional." I scanned the article. A car crash from 30 years ago. My grandmother's sister, dead after her brakes mysteriously failed. "Dad thought you abandoned them," I whispered. "I was protecting them. Just like you're protecting Ethan now." Eleanor's eyes were sharp. "But protection isn't enough. Sometimes you have to fight back." A crash from upstairs cut through the tension. Lucy's scream followed. "Avery!" I ran up the stairs 2 at a time. Ethan's room was empty, the window open to the storm. On his bed lay his favorite stuffed bear, its head torn off. "The cameras caught him," Lucy said, tablet in hand. "Marcus." He was gone before the alarm triggered. My legs gave out. Eleanor caught me before I hit the floor. "He's showing you what he can do," she said. "What he'll take if you don't go back." My phone buzzed, a video message from Marcus. Ethan's bear wasn't the only thing he'd taken. The screen showed papers scattered across his desk, medical records, school reports, photos of me at college parties. "Come home," his voice purred, "or everyone sees who you really are. Including the judge. How do you think they'll view a mother with your history?" "He's bluffing," Lucy said, but her voice shook. "No," I replied, "he's winning." Eleanor's hand gripped my shoulder. "Only if you let him." "I have nothing left." The words tore from my throat. "No money, no proof, no power. He's taken everything." "Not everything." Eleanor moved to an old painting on the wall, swung it aside to reveal a safe. "Your grandfather taught me one thing: always keep evidence." She pulled out a thick folder. Inside were documents, photos, bank statements, 30 years of carefully gathered proof of financial fraud and worse. "Marcus isn't just fighting you," she said. "He's fighting a ghost who taught me everything about men like him. And ghosts don't play fair." My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, you have 1 hour to decide. After that, everything burns." I looked at the folder in my hands, at Lucy's determined face, at Eleanor's knowing smile. Something cold and certain settled in my chest. "Tell him I'm coming home," I said, reaching for my coat. "But first, we need to make a stop." "Where?" Lucy asked. "To see Jennifer Bennett. It's time to compare notes." The storm outside grew stronger, but for the first time since leaving Marcus, I felt steady. Sometimes rock bottom isn't an ending. Sometimes it's just the foundation you need to build something stronger. Jennifer Bennett lived in a small apartment above a bookstore 2 states away. Her hair was different, her name was changed, but her eyes held the same haunted look I saw in my mirror every morning. "I wondered when you'd find me," she said, letting us in. We spread Eleanor's documents across Jennifer's kitchen table, 3 decades of carefully documented fraud, abuse, and manipulation. Jennifer added her own files, and slowly, a pattern emerged. "The accident that killed your parents," Jennifer said quietly. "It wasn't the first one Marcus arranged." My phone buzzed. "Marcus, 20 minutes left, sweetheart. Clock's ticking." I texted back, "Coming home. Meet me at the house." Lucy grabbed my arm. "You can't go back there. Watch me." I turned to Jennifer. "Are you ready?" She nodded, her hands shaking but her voice steady. Been ready for 3 years. The drive back felt like moving through a dream. Eleanor's evidence was already with the FBI. Jennifer's testimony was recorded and safe. Everything was in place. Marcus was waiting in our living room, Ethan's torn bear on the coffee table between us. "I knew you'd make the right choice," he said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "Where's Ethan?" "Safe. With my sister." His smile turned cold. "Where he'll stay until you prove you can be trusted." "Like Jennifer proved herself?" I watched his face change. "Or like my parents proved themselves?" "Careful, Avery." He moved toward me, but I held my ground. "You're emotional." "Not thinking clearly." "Actually, I'm thinking clearly for the first time since that night at the hospital." I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. "Remember this night, Marcus?" The security footage played silently, Marcus arguing with my father outside their house, following their car, making a call moments before the crash. "Where did you get that?" His mask slipped completely. Eleanor had cameras installed after her sister died the same way. Funny how history repeats itself. "You can't prove anything." "No." I nodded toward the window. Red and blue lights flashed outside. "Jennifer's testimony might help. And the FBI seems very interested in those offshore accounts you set up with my parents' money." Marcus lunged for me, but Lucy appeared in the doorway, Jennifer behind her. His eyes darted between us, calculating. "Everything I did was for us," he said. "To protect our family." "No." My voice was ice. "Everything you did was for control. But you made one mistake." "What's that?" "You thought I was weak. Like Jennifer. Like my mother." I stepped closer. "But I'm not them. I'm Eleanor's granddaughter. And she taught me how to fight back." The FBI agents burst in before Marcus could respond. As they read him his rights, he kept his eyes locked on mine. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You're nothing without me." I picked up Ethan's bear, carefully reattaching its head. "No, Marcus. I was nothing with you. That was the point." Later, at Eleanor's house, I held Ethan close, watching him sleep. Lucy brought coffee, Jennifer brought blankets, and Eleanor brought perspective. "Your father never knew the truth about his mother," she said, showing me an old letter. "Your grandfather convinced him I abandoned them. By the time I gathered enough evidence to fight back, it was too late. The damage was done. But not this time," I said. "No." Eleanor smiled. "Not this time." My phone buzzed one last time, Marcus's lawyer, offering a deal. Delete the evidence, recant the testimony, and he'd give me full custody of Ethan. I showed the message to Jennifer. She took my phone and typed 2 words, "Not interested." Outside, the storm finally broke. Through the window, I could see stars emerging, bright and clear against the dark sky. Ethan stirred in my arms, safe and whole. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. Sometimes it's about rebuilding everything they tried to break, stronger, better, and far beyond their reach. Marcus had taught me about power, but Eleanor, Lucy, and Jennifer had taught me about strength. And in the end, that made all the difference. 1 year later, I stood in Eleanor's attic, surrounded by antique furniture waiting to be restored. Sunlight streamed through the dormer windows, catching dust motes and memories alike. My workshop had become my sanctuary, each piece of furniture a story waiting to be renewed. The news about Marcus came during breakfast. Lucy burst in, waving her phone. "Guilty on all counts," she announced. 15 years minimum. Eleanor looked up from feeding Ethan his oatmeal. "Good. Though prison's too comfortable for men like him." I kept sanding the Victorian desk I was restoring, letting the rhythmic motion calm my racing heart. Did he say anything? Tried to blame everyone else. The judge wasn't buying it. Lucy sat beside Ethan, wiping oatmeal from his chin. Jennifer sends her thanks, by the way. She's finally using her real name again. The doorbell rang, another customer for our growing restoration business. Eleanor's attic treasures had become the foundation of something unexpected: independence. "Mrs. Peterson's here about her grandmother's cabinet," Eleanor called up the stairs. "Coming." I set down my sandpaper, studying my work. The desk had arrived badly damaged, its surface scarred and watermarked. Now the original would gleam through, waiting for its final polish. As I descended the stairs, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. I looked different, stronger, steadier. My father's eyes looked back at me, and for the first time, I understood him better. Sometimes the hardest patterns to break are the ones we inherit. The afternoon brought another visitor, Marcus's sister, Catherine. She stood awkwardly on the porch, clutching a familiar teddy bear. "Found this while cleaning out his place," she said. "Thought Ethan might want it back." I took the bear, now professionally repaired. "Thank you." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have seen what he was doing. Should have stopped him." "We all should have seen something," I replied. The question is what we do after we finally open our eyes. Later, as sunset painted Eleanor's garden in gold, we gathered for our weekly family dinner. Lucy brought wine, Jennifer drove down from her new home 2 towns over, and Eleanor presided over it all like a benevolent queen. To justice, Lucy proposed, raising her glass. To survival, Jennifer added. To family, Eleanor corrected, watching Ethan play with his restored bear. The kind we choose, not the kind that chains us. I touched the letter in my pocket, the one that had explained everything about Eleanor and my father. Their estrangement had been built on lies, just like Marcus's power over me. But unlike my father, I'd gotten the chance to learn the truth in time. "I have news," I announced. "The restoration business is expanding. We've been asked to handle the renovation of the Historical Society's entire collection." "That's wonderful," Lucy exclaimed, but Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "And," she prompted, "and I've decided to go back to school. Part-time for now. Art conservation and restoration." Eleanor smiled, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. "Good. About time you started building something for yourself." Speaking of building, Jennifer added, "My support group for survivors wants you to come speak next month. Share your story." I hesitated, thinking of all the women out there still trapped in their own versions of my story. "Yes," I said finally. "I'll come." As night fell, I tucked Ethan into bed in what had been my father's childhood room. The walls still held old photographs, Eleanor's careful documentation of a life interrupted. But now new pictures hung alongside them: Ethan's first steps, Lucy's birthday party, Jennifer's art show opening. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus's lawyer. Another appeal, another attempt to rewrite history. I deleted it without reading it. Some scars don't fade completely. Some restorations leave traces of damage behind. But as I stood in my workshop the next morning, running my hands over smooth wood and honest repairs, I realized something important. Sometimes the most beautiful pieces are the ones that show where they've been broken and carefully, lovingly put back together. Not perfect, but stronger for the mending.
I still remember the exact moment my world shifted, though I didn't realize it then. It was my 10th birthday, and I was sitting cross-legged on our living room floor, clutching the handmade quilt my grandmother had just given me. The fabric was soft against my skin, each patch telling a different story, pieces of my baby clothes, my first Halloween costume, even a snippet from the dress I wore to my first day of school. My name is Rhea, and that birthday marked the beginning of understanding what it meant to be the forgotten child. "Open mine next, Jasper." My mother's voice rang with excitement as she thrust a wrapped package toward my 6-year-old brother. Never mind that it was my birthday party. Jasper tore into the paper with the enthusiasm only a spoiled kindergartner could muster, revealing a brand new Nintendo gaming system. "This is amazing." He bounced up and down while my father beamed. "Can I set it up now?" "Of course, champ," Dad said, already moving toward the television. "I'll help you." I pulled the quilt tighter around my shoulders, breathing in the familiar scent of my grandmother's lavender perfume. Grandma B caught my eye from her spot on the couch and gave me a knowing wink. "Come here, little bird," she said, patting the space beside her. "Let me tell you about each piece of this quilt while the boys play with their new toy." I climbed up next to her, grateful for the escape. My grandfather Walter squeezed my hand as he passed by, heading to the kitchen for more coffee. The weight of the quilt felt like a shield, protecting me from the squeals of delight coming from Jasper as Dad helped him connect the gaming system. "This blue patch here," Grandma B whispered, "is from the dress you wore when you learned to ride a bike. Remember how proud you were?" I nodded, tracing the familiar pattern with my finger. "You and Grandpa were there. And Aunt Lorna took pictures." "That's right. Your aunt nearly crashed into Mrs. Henderson's rose bushes because she was so focused on capturing your first successful ride." From across the room, my mother's voice cut through our moment. "Rhea, don't you want to watch Jasper play his new game? He's going to let you have a turn." "How generous of him," Aunt Lorna muttered from her perch by the window, "to share his new toy at his sister's birthday party." My mother's smile tightened. "Lorna, please." "What?" "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Aunt Lorna stood up, her tall frame casting a shadow across the room. Walter, want to help me bring out the cake?" Before we completely forget whose birthday we're actually celebrating, I watched my aunt stride toward the kitchen, her spine straight as an arrow. My mother's face flushed red, but she said nothing, turning back to coo over Jasper's progress in his game. Grandma B squeezed my shoulder. "Your aunt has always had a fierce heart, just like you. Now let me tell you about this yellow patch. This one's special." But before she could continue, Dad's voice boomed across the room. "Celeste, honey, come look. Jasper's a natural at this game. He's going to be just like his old man, good with his hands. Perfect for taking over the repair shops someday." I felt Grandma B.A.'s grip tighten slightly on my shoulder. The room suddenly felt smaller, more suffocating, despite the quilt's comfort. I watched as my mother hurried over to join them, completing their perfect little triangle around the television screen. "Your story matters too, little bird," Grandma B whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. "And someday they'll realize what they've been missing all along." I nodded, but something cold and hard had settled in my chest, right next to my heart. It was the first time I truly understood that in my father's eyes I was just a shadow, a placeholder for the son he'd always wanted. What I didn't know then was that this realization would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. And it all started with a quilt, a Nintendo, and a birthday party that wasn't really mine at all. Call came on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after my birthday. I was sitting in math class, doodling flowers in the margins of my notebook, when the principal's voice crackled over the intercom. My Aunt Lorna was waiting in the office. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw her face. Aunt Lorna never cried, but her eyes were red and swollen. She grabbed my hand as soon as I walked through the office door. "There's been an accident," she said, her voice barely holding steady. "Grandma B and Grandpa Walter." The rest of her words faded into a hollow buzzing in my ears. I clutched my backpack straps so tight my knuckles turned white, the weight of my grandmother's quilt inside suddenly feeling like lead. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Aunt Lorna kept reaching over to squeeze my hand, but neither of us spoke. When we arrived, my parents were already there. Mom was crying quietly in a corner while Dad paced the waiting room, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I understand the shops need managing, but this is a family emergency," he was saying. "I'll be there as soon as I can." Jasper sat alone in a plastic chair, looking smaller than his 6 years. For once, nobody was paying attention to him. He looked up when I walked in, his lower lip trembling. "Rhea," he whispered, "are Grandma and Grandpa going to be okay?" Before I could answer, a doctor appeared in the doorway. The look on his face told us everything we needed to know. The next few days passed in a fog of black clothes and casseroles. People kept patting my head and telling me how sorry they were, but their words felt empty. The only real thing was the quilt wrapped around my shoulders, the last gift Grandma B would ever give me. The funeral, Dad stood at the podium and talked about family legacy and the importance of carrying on. He barely mentioned Grandma B.A.'s stories or Grandpa Walter's terrible jokes. It was all about business and tradition and the future of the Parker name. "Your father always did miss the point," Aunt Lorna muttered beside me. She squeezed my shoulder. "You okay, little bird?" I nodded, though I wasn't. Not really. Across the church, I watched my mother dab at her eyes with a tissue while simultaneously trying to keep Jasper quiet with his handheld game. After the service, everyone gathered at our house. I escaped to my room, but the sound of voices still carried up the stairs. Dad was talking to Uncle Robert about the repair shops again. The timing couldn't be worse, I heard him say. We're expanding to 3 new locations next month. Jasper's legacy is at stake here. A sharp laugh cut through their conversation. Jasper's legacy? Aunt Lorna's voice was razor sharp. Your son is 6 years old, Everett, and your daughter is right upstairs, grieving the only people who ever really saw her. Now isn't the time, Lorna. When is the time? When Ria's completely invisible. When she's given up hoping for your attention entirely. You have no right. I have every right. They were my parents too, and unlike you, I actually knew them. Did you know Mom spent the last 3 months making that quilt for Ria? Or that Dad taught her constellations every Friday night? The silence that followed was deafening. I pressed my face into the quilt, breathing in the fading scent of lavender, trying to hold on to the memory of Grandma B.A.'s voice. A soft knock at my door made me look up. It was Jasper, clutching his gaming device. Can I sit with you? He asked quietly. Everyone downstairs is fighting. I nodded, lifting the edge of the quilt. He crawled under it with me, and for the first time I didn't feel resentful of his presence. We were both lost in the same storm. I miss them, he whispered. Me too. Below, I could still hear Aunt Lorna and Dad arguing, their voices rising and falling like waves. But something else was building underneath, a quiet determination taking root in my chest. Grandma B had always said I had a fierce heart, just like Aunt Lorna. Maybe it was time to prove her right. 2 months after the funeral, I found Aunt Lorna sitting on Grandma B.A.'s front porch, clutching a piece of paper. Her hands were shaking. They're selling the house, she said before I could ask. Your father's already listed it. The world tilted sideways. This house was my sanctuary, filled with memories of weekend sleepovers and midnight stargazing sessions with Grandpa Walter. The garden where Grandma B taught me about herbs. Kitchen where Aunt Lorna would sneak me cookies before dinner. He can't, I whispered, but we both knew he could. As executor of the estate, Dad had full control. He says it's the practical decision. Aunt Lorna's voice dripped with bitterness. Apparently, maintaining a family home isn't as important as expanding his precious repair shops. I sank down beside her, my grandmother's quilt wrapped around my shoulders like armor. Where will you go? Aunt Lorna had lived here for years, helping care for my grandparents. This wasn't just their home, it was hers too. The screen door creaked open behind us. Lorna, we need to discuss the timeline for vacating the property. My father's voice was all business, like he was talking to one of his employees instead of his sister-in-law. Aunt Lorna stood slowly, her spine straightening. Vacating the property? Is that what we're calling it now, Everett? Throwing me out of my parents' home? Don't be dramatic. The market's hot right now and the business needs. The business? Aunt Lorna whirled around. Mom and Dad's house isn't your personal piggy bank. This place was meant to stay in the family. And what family would that be? Dad's voice turned sharp. You're not even their real daughter. They took you in out of pity when your parents died. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched the color drain from Aunt Lorna's face. How dare you, she whispered. They loved me like their own. Which is more than I can say for how you treat your daughter. Dad's jaw clenched. Leave Ria out of this. Why? You do. My mother appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. Please, let's not fight. Everett, maybe we could wait. The decision's made, Celeste. Dad's tone left no room for argument. The house goes on the market next week. Lorna has 30 days to find new arrangements. I felt something snap inside me. What about me? My voice came out stronger than I expected. This is the only place I feel at home. Dad barely glanced at me. Don't be ridiculous, Ria. You have a perfectly good home with us. Do I? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Or do I just have a front row seat to the Jasper show? That's enough. Dad's face darkened. This discussion is over. The house is being sold. Aunt Lorna reached for my hand, squeezing it tight. You're right, Everett. This discussion is over. But not in the way you think. She pulled an envelope from her pocket. Mom left me a letter. Did you know she suspected you might try something like this? That's why she had her lawyer draw up a separate document. I have right of first refusal on the house. Dad snatched the paper from her hand, his face growing redder as he read. This is impossible. The estate is more complicated than you thought. Aunt Lorna's smile was razor sharp. You might control the estate, but you can't sell this house without my agreement. And I don't agree. Mom touched Dad's arm. Everett, perhaps we should. No. He crumpled the paper in his fist. This changes nothing. If you want the house, Lorna, you'll have to buy it. Market value. Cash. 30 days. He stormed inside, Mom trailing behind like a shadow. But I stayed on the porch with Aunt Lorna, watching the sun set over Grandma B.A.'s garden. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. Aunt Lorna wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Whatever it takes, little bird. Whatever it takes. But we both knew that even if she found the money, nothing would ever be the same. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was starting to realize which side I was on. The day I chose to leave started like any other. I was doing homework at the kitchen table when Mom walked in, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Your father's bringing potential buyers to see the house tomorrow, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. They're a lovely couple with 3 children. Wouldn't that be nice? I kept writing in my notebook, pressing the pen so hard it nearly tore through the paper. Nice for who? Ria, please. Your father's doing what he thinks is best for everyone. Everyone except Aunt Lorna. Everyone except me. Mom sighed, that familiar sound of surrender I'd grown to hate. Sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions. Like choosing one child over the other? The words hung in the air between us. Mom's face crumpled, but before she could respond, Dad burst through the door, Jasper trailing behind him with an ice cream cone. Great news, Dad announced. The business loan came through. We're expanding to 3 new locations by spring. He ruffled Jasper's hair. Ready to learn the ropes, champ? Jasper licked his ice cream, looking uncertain. I guess so. That's my boy. Dad turned to Mom. Did you tell Ria about tomorrow's showing? I slammed my textbook shut. Yeah, she told me you're selling my grandparents' memories to strangers. Watch your tone, young lady. Dad's voice hardened. This attitude of yours needs to stop. You're acting just like Lorna. Good, I said, standing up. At least someone in this family still knows right from wrong. Ria. Mom's warning came too late. Dad's face turned red. Go to your room. Now. Why? So you can pretend I don't exist? Like always. That's enough. His fist came down on the table, making Jasper jump and drop his ice cream. I won't have you disrespecting me in my own home. No, I said quietly, surprising myself with how calm I felt. This isn't my home. It never was. I walked upstairs, pulled out my phone, and texted Aunt Lorna. I'm ready. Her response came immediately. Pack what matters. I'll be there in 20. I grabbed my backpack and started filling it with essentials. Grandma's quilt went in first, followed by photos, clothes, and the jar of birthday money I'd been saving. My hands were steady, even though my heart was racing. A soft knock made me freeze. Ria. It was Jasper. Can I come in? He slipped inside before I could answer, his eyes widening at my half-packed bag. Are you running away? Not running away, I said, folding another shirt. Just choosing a different path. His lower lip trembled. Because of me? I stopped packing and really looked at my little brother. Behind the privilege and the favoritism, he was just a kid caught in Dad's web of expectations just like me. No, Jasper. Not because of you. I pulled him into a hug. Sometimes people need to leave to find themselves. But I'll always be your sister. He hugged me back fiercely. Promise. Promise. My phone buzzed. Aunt Lorna was outside. I shouldered my backpack and took one last look around my room. Through the window, I could see Dad's prized BMW in the driveway with its custom plates advertising his repair shops. The sight of it sparked an idea. I grabbed a marker from my desk and scribbled a note. You can't sell memories, Dad, but you can lose them. Downstairs, I could hear Mom and Dad arguing in the kitchen. I slipped out the front door without saying goodbye, leaving my house key on the entry table. Aunt Lorna was waiting in her beat-up Volvo, engine running. As I climbed in, she squeezed my hand. You okay, little bird? I nodded, watching my childhood home shrink in the side mirror. I will be. Your parents. We'll figure it out eventually. Or they won't. I pulled Grandma's quilt tighter around my shoulders. Either way, I'm done being invisible. As we drove away, I felt something shift inside me, not just anger or hurt, but a quiet determination. Dad always said legacy was everything. Well, he was about to learn what happens when you forget that legacy isn't just about what you leave behind, it's about who you leave behind too. Living with Aunt Lorna changed everything. Our small apartment above the bookstore where she worked became my sanctuary, filled with the smell of old paper and coffee. No expectations. No disappointments. Just peace. Until the letter arrived. I was doing homework at the counter when the bell above the door chimed. Mom walked in, looking smaller than I remembered, clutching an envelope. Rhea, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You look different. 6 months had passed since I left. My grades had soared. I cut my hair short, started wearing clothes I actually liked. Found my voice. What do you want? I kept my eyes on my textbook. Your father's expanding again. 3 more shops. She placed the envelope on the counter. He wants Jasper to start training this summer. But Jasper... She paused, twisting her wedding ring. He's refusing. I finally looked up. Good for him. You don't understand. Your father's furious. He's threatening to cut off Jasper's college fund if he doesn't comply. The familiar anger bubbled up. And you're letting him? I thought maybe you could talk to Jasper. He looks up to you even after. After what? After I escaped? After I chose not to be Dad's backup plan? The bell chimed again. Aunt Lorna appeared, carrying a box of new inventory. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Mom. Celeste, this is unexpected. Mom straightened her spine. I'm here about Jasper. Of course you are. Aunt Lorna set down the box. Not about the daughter you let Everett push away. That's not fair. Life rarely is. Aunt Lorna moved behind the counter, standing close to me. How's the house hunting going? Found anyone willing to pay your husband's inflated price? Mom's face flushed. The market's complicated. Like your conscience? I opened the envelope Mom had brought. Inside was a newspaper clipping about Dad's business expansion and a note in Jasper's messy handwriting. I can't be him, Rhea. I won't. He's only 12, Mom pleaded. He needs his sister. And where were you when I needed my mother? The words came out sharp enough to make her flinch. I made mistakes. No, I cut her off. Mistakes are forgetting birthdays or missing a school play. You watched Dad erase me and did nothing. Aunt Lorna squeezed my shoulder. I think it's time for you to leave, Celeste. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. Just think about Jasper. Please. After she left, I stared at the newspaper clipping until the words blurred. Dad's smiling face looked back at me, standing in front of his flagship store. The same expression he wore when he sold my grandparents' house, when he mapped out Jasper's future without asking. You okay, little bird? Aunt Lorna asked. I should help Jasper. Should you? I traced the edge of the clipping. Dad's using him like he tried to use me, as props in his perfect family picture. Then maybe it's time to change the picture. Aunt Lorna pulled something from beneath the counter, a college application. Your test scores came in. Full scholarship potential. You could study business, accounting. Why would I want to study that? Her smile turned sharp. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't running away. It's coming back stronger. I looked at the application, then at Jasper's note. Dad always said legacy was everything. But maybe legacy wasn't just about inheriting a business. Maybe it was about breaking cycles, about being strong enough to write your own story. I'll help Jasper, I said finally. But not by talking him into Dad's plan. By showing him there's another way. Aunt Lorna nodded, understanding lighting her eyes. Your grandmother would be proud. I touched the quilt draped over my chair, thinking of Grandma B.A.'s stories about standing up for what's right. About how sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting back, it's fighting smart. Dad wanted an empire? Fine. But he was about to learn that empires can fall from the inside out. I picked up the college application and started to write. 15 years after my 10th birthday, I stood in front of Parker's Auto Repair, clutching my Master of Business Administration diploma and a stack of financial records that could destroy everything my father had built. The familiar logo, the one he'd chosen over his daughter, was fading in the afternoon sun. I wasn't here for revenge. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Jasper met me outside, looking nothing like the golden child Dad had tried to mold him into. His suit was rumpled, his eyes tired. They don't know I called you, he said quietly. Dad's pride wouldn't let him admit how bad things are. How bad? 6 shops underwater. 2 more about to go under. He ran a hand through his hair. He kept expanding, taking out loans, trying to build this empire for a son who never wanted it. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years studying business, learning every aspect of the industry that had stolen my father's attention. Now I could save his legacy or watch it crumble. The bell chimed as we walked in. Mom was at the counter, looking older than her years. Dad stood by the window, still trying to project strength even as his world collapsed. What is she doing here? His voice was sharp, but I caught the tremor beneath. Helping, Jasper said. Whether you want it or not. I spread the financial records on the counter. You're 3 months from bankruptcy. The new locations are bleeding money, and your accounting practices are. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Let's say creative. You went through my books? Dad's face reddened. You had no right. Like you had no right to sell Grandma's house? To push away everyone who didn't fit your perfect plan? Mom stepped forward. Rhea, please. We're sorry about. This isn't about sorry. I pulled out another document. This is about choices. The same kind you forced on me and Jasper. Dad glanced at the papers, his hand shaking slightly. What are you proposing? I can save the business. My firm specializes in restructuring failing companies. I met his eyes. But there are conditions. Of course there are. He laughed bitterly. The prodigal daughter returns to gloat. No, Jasper cut in. She's here because I asked her. Because while you were building shops for a son who didn't want them, she was building herself into someone stronger than any of us. The silence that followed was heavy with 15 years of unspoken words. I watched Dad's facade crack just slightly as he looked at the empire crumbling around him. "Your conditions?" he asked finally. I pulled out one last document, the deed to Grandma B.A.'s house. "First, you buy back the house. It goes to Aunt Lorna as it should have years ago. That property's worth." "Less than your pride?" I interrupted. "Choose carefully, Dad. This time you're not the one holding all the cards." He stared at me for a long moment, really seeing me perhaps for the first time. I waited, feeling the weight of Grandma's quilt around my shoulders even though it was safely at home. "And the other conditions?" "You step down. Let Jasper and me restructure the business our way. You can keep your legacy, but you have to trust us to preserve it." The look on his face, confusion, anger, fear, almost made me falter. Almost made me the invisible daughter again. But I wasn't that girl anymore. "Think about it," I said, gathering the papers. "You have until tomorrow to decide. Just remember, sometimes saving something means letting go of how you thought it should be." I turned to leave, but Mom's voice stopped me. "We missed you, Rhea. Both of you." I looked back at my broken family, the father who couldn't bend, the mother who couldn't stand firm, the brother who found his strength too late. Part of me wanted to help them, to fix everything. But another part knew that some things had to break completely before they could be rebuilt. "Tomorrow," I repeated and walked out into the sunlight, leaving them with their choices just as they'd once left me with mine. Dad called at midnight. "I'll sign the papers," he said, his voice rough. "All of them." The next morning, I walked into Parker's Auto Repair carrying 2 boxes, one filled with legal documents, the other with Grandma B.A.'s quilt. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Dad sat behind his desk, looking smaller than I remembered. Mom stood by the window while Jasper leaned against the wall, watching. The air felt heavy with 15 years of unspoken words. "Before we start," Dad said, reaching for the papers, "I want to explain." "No." I placed both boxes on his desk. "First, you need to see something." I opened the second box and pulled out the quilt, spreading it across his desk. The patches of fabric covered his carefully arranged papers, each square telling a story he'd never bothered to hear. "This is what legacy looks like, Dad. Not buildings or bank accounts. Stories. Memories. Love." His hands hovered over the quilt, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Your grandmother's. The last thing she gave me. While you were buying Jasper that gaming system, she was sewing pieces of my life together." I touched a blue patch. "This is from the dress I wore when I won the state math competition. You didn't come." Mom made a small sound like something breaking. "And this," I continued, pointing to a yellow square, "is from the shirt I wore the day you sold their house. The day you chose your empire over your family." "I was trying to build something for all of us," Dad protested, but his voice wavered. "No." Jasper stepped forward. "You were building something for yourself, using us as excuses." I pulled out the final document, the deed to Grandma's house. "Sign it." Dad's hand shook as he reached for the pen. "The business will survive. Jasper and I will make sure of it. But not your way." He signed, the scratch of pen on paper loud in the quiet room. Mom wiped tears from her cheeks, and for once she didn't try to smooth things over. "There's something else," I said, reaching into my bag. "I found this while going through the business records." I placed a faded envelope on top of the quilt. Dad's name was written in Grandma B.A.'s handwriting. "Where did you?" "It was in her desk at the house. The one you sold without clearing out her things." His hands trembled as he opened it. A single sheet of paper fell out along with a key. "Dear Everett," he read aloud, "if you're reading this, you're probably about to make a terrible mistake. The house isn't just property, it's the heart of this family. Key enclosed opens a safe in the study. Inside, you'll find something more valuable than any business, the truth about what really matters." The letter slipped from his fingers. I never knew. Because you never looked. I stood up, gathering the signed papers. The house goes back to Aunt Lorna tomorrow. The business restructuring starts next week. Your choice now is simple. Be part of the rebuilding or stay trapped in the ruins of what you thought mattered. And if I choose wrong again? His voice was barely a whisper. I touched the quilt one last time. Then you'll have to live with that choice. Just like I've lived with yours. As I turned to leave, Mom stepped forward. The quilt? Will you leave it? I looked at the fabric spread across Dad's desk. 15 years of memories he'd ignored, now impossible to miss. No, I said quietly. But I'll bring it back when you've earned the right to see the stories it tells. I walked out into the sunlight, leaving them with the weight of their choices and the key to a truth they should have known all along. Sometimes the greatest legacy isn't what you build, but what you're willing to rebuild. Behind me, I heard Dad start to cry. 1 year later, I stood in Grandma B.A.'s garden, watching Aunt Lorna plant lavender. The old house looked different now, restored, alive, filled with the warmth I remembered from childhood. They're here, Jasper called from the porch. I straightened up, brushing dirt from my knees. Mom and Dad's car pulled into the driveway, moving slowly like they weren't sure they belonged. Maybe they didn't, not yet. But they were trying. Ready, little bird? Aunt Lorna asked, squeezing my shoulder. I nodded, touching the quilt draped over the porch swing. Today felt right for its return. Dad looked older, softer somehow. The business restructuring had worked. 3 shops instead of 8, focused on quality over empire. Jasper managed one while I handled the finances. Dad worked the counter at the original location, learning to listen to customers' stories instead of just fixing their cars. We found something, Mom said by way of greeting, holding out a dusty box. In the safe. The one from Grandma B.A.'s letter. Inside was a collection of photographs I'd never seen. Me at school events, award ceremonies, quiet moments in the garden, all captured by Grandma B without anyone knowing. And beneath them, a letter addressed to me. Read it, Aunt Lorna urged gently. My hand shook as I unfolded the paper. My dearest Rhea, I read aloud, if you're reading this, then everything has either fallen apart or come together. Sometimes they're the same thing. The quilt I made you isn't just memories, it's a map. Each patch shows a moment when you were stronger than anyone knew. Keep adding to it. Your story isn't finished just because others stopped reading. Dad made a sound like pain. She knew. All along, she knew what I was doing to this family. Yes, Aunt Lorna said simply. But she also knew Rhea would find her way back. Not to what was broken, but to what could be rebuilt. I spread the quilt across the porch railing, its patches catching the afternoon light. The new squares had been added over the year, pieces of my business suits, Jasper's college graduation tie, even a snippet from Mom's gardening apron. I have something too, Dad said quietly, pulling out a familiar key. The safe had 2 compartments. This opens the second one. Inside, we found Grandma B.A.'s journal, filled with stories about our family, not just the happy moments but the hard ones too. The last entry was dated just before the accident. Love isn't always enough, I read, but it's always a place to start. The real legacy isn't in buildings or businesses, but in the courage to rebuild what matters most. Mom stepped forward hesitantly. We've been thinking. The apartment above the original shop is empty. If you wanted a place in town for when you're working. I looked at Aunt Lorna, who nodded encouragingly. Maybe, I said. One step at a time. Later, as the sun set, we sat on the porch, the broken family slowly mending, the chosen family who'd never left. Dad ran his fingers over the quilt's patches, learning the stories he'd missed. Mom and Aunt Lorna shared gardening tips, their awkwardness giving way to cautious warmth. Jasper nudged my shoulder. Think Grandma B planned all this? The letters, the safe, the timing? I smiled, remembering her words about stories not being finished. I think she gave us the pieces. We had to figure out how to stitch them together. The lavender swayed in the evening breeze, its scent mixing with memories both old and new. Some wounds would never fully heal, and some trust might never fully return. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the real legacy was learning that family, like quilts, could be both cherished and changed, preserved and added to, broken and beautiful all at once. I touched the empty space at the quilt's edge, ready for whatever story came next.